You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and aggressively keep our heads under the sand, choosing to live in denial that Hollywood doesn't care about us or the characters we grew up with, because at the end of the day, art is inconsequential and the film industry has been a cash grab from day one, but we can't escape the tractor beam pull of nostalgia, and neither can you, so I hope you're comfortable because we're about to go on a long-winded rant about our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were raised by rentals. Mike, I was trying to be snarky, but I think I'm actually depressed now.
I was going to say, I was like, oh, that's sad because it's true.
I know. I was like all excited about like having a fun rental rant episode this time and getting all like keyed up. And then I wrote this thing and I'm like, wait a second. I should have saved this one for another episode.
I don't know. I feel like it works with this one. I feel like it absolutely is going to work.
Yeah, I think absolutely, because we are here, as I mentioned, for a Rental Rant episode, our first one of season 4, our 15th overall. Yeah, the 15th Rental Rant. And this time we are going all the way back to the well, just like we did with our last episode, Escape from Earth, where we went back to the beginning to kind of look at some of our original ideas for the podcast. This time we are looking at one of the very first topics that we ever brainstormed when we came up with the concept of the Rental Rant episodes, right? These sort of off-week specials where we get a chance to take a break from the improv storytelling and just talk about nerd stuff, right? Talk about pop culture stuff. And specifically, we used to say that, yes, we would go on rants, but we would also take an opportunity once in a while to have a debate. Like we would pick a topic and just go at it. And the only time we've ever previously tried to have a debate was when we did our Bustin' Makes Me Feel Good episode. Where
That's right. I forgot about that.
We were supposed to have a debate about which is the better Ghostbusters movie, the first one or the second one. But then after we watched the movies, it came on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, like I got to throw in the towel before we even start because, you know, my argument that Ghostbusters 2 is superior to the first one is fucking stupid.
Yeah, no, I remember that now. I remember being shocked when you were like, hot take, Ghostbusters 2 is better, and I was like, excuse me, sir? Because I absolutely love the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people do, but we ended up having a really fun conversation about Ghostbusters in general, where I kind of explained that to this day, I still enjoy the second Ghostbusters movie when I watch it. If I wanted to pick one of them to just put on in the background and, you know, just have something that I can kind of half pay attention to while I do the dishes or whatever, then I'm going to pick Ghostbusters 2 because it's just a fun movie, in the same way that I'm going to pick Gremlins 2 because Gremlins 2 is just a fun movie. But when you take a step back and just try to look at the two of them critically, you know, which one is superior? Obviously, in both of those examples, the first movie is the better movie objectively.
Right. But that's fair. Like sometimes you just want a fun, silly movie to put on in the background, or hell, just, you know, put on, just shut your brain off and watch. I do that all the time. Like there are definitely, you know, films where the original, like, okay, we can look at the Friday the 13th franchise and argue all day long that the first one is a very, very, very good whodunit movie.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna put on part 6 every time. Like, you know, if I just want a movie to watch, part 6 is going on. So I don't care that it's silly and comical. I'm watching it.
Yeah, everyone has heard me say it before. I would argue that Friday the 13th Part 6 is the best movie in the entire franchise. And not just because it's the one that I like the best, but I could, you know, go down the litany of reasons why I objectively think, or I shouldn't say objectively, but, you know, I think that I could make an argument that it is objectively the best movie in the franchise based on the filmmaking and the cast and the choices that they made in the storytelling, and the fact that, you know, in my opinion, it's the first time that Jason was the Jason that the wider culture understands as who Jason Voorhees is, you know. And when I show my kids we started with part 6 because of that, because it's the Jason that they expect. If we start with the first one, they have to wait to the third one to even get to the hockey mask, and then they have to wait even longer for him to be the character that they are used to seeing from, Halloween and decorations and, pop culture stuff,
Right.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about Friday the 13th or Jason Voorhees. We're here to talk about, again, one of the very first topics we ever put on our list of things to talk about when we did a rental rant, and we've teased it many, many, many times, which is that we are finally going to debate on whether Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, is a good movie or not.
Fight!
I got shit to say.
I can hear it like bubbling up. So, in this corner, I'll say that I think that The Last Jedi is a great Star Wars movie. It's a great movie in general, and I don't know how I necessarily would rank the 9 Star Wars saga movies, but it's definitely not at the bottom, for sure. Definitely not at the bottom. There were several other Star Wars movies in those main 3 trilogies that I think are worse than The Last Jedi. I genuinely really enjoy this movie, and it's one of the handful that I go to when I want a popcorn movie to watch or something comforting to put on in the background, because there's so much awesome shit.
Whew, man. I don't want to yuck your yum, my friend, but holy hell, I hate this movie. Like, before watching it critically, I was able to give it a pass. After watching it critically, I'm like, nah, man, I'm done giving a pass.
And I have the exact opposite reaction. And we can kind of back up and go through the reasons why. But just like in my experience, is the first time that I saw it, there were things that I noticed as I'm watching the movie, going, yeah, okay, like this is kind of a weird choice, or like, why Benicio del Toro of all actors they could have gotten? Not that he's a bad actor, but like not for that role. It's just miscast. You know what I mean? So as I'm literally in the movie theater watching the movie, I'm like, okay, I probably wouldn't have done that. I probably wouldn't have done that. But that was far outweighed by the number of times that I silently in my head, because I don't want to be loud in the movie theater, but in my head was just like, fuck yeah, hell yeah, that's fucking awesome. I was like getting so excited, and I couldn't wait to get a chance to watch it again. And as soon as it came on streaming, I watched it again and again and again. And every time I watch it, the things that I didn't like bother me more, but the things that I liked, I love them even more, right? So it's like those things the problems that I have with it, the flaws in the masterpiece are not, they're not invisible. It's like I'm aware that they are there, but I don't care, because there's so many awesome things that I enjoy that it's a go-to for me.
Okay. I'm gonna try to be nice out of the gate. So, first and foremost, I need to explain to the audience, for those that don't know me or maybe have never talked to Star Wars with me, I am a lifelong Star Wars fanboy. So this is not coming from a place of, man, I don't like Star Wars. I fucking love Star Wars. And like, I was one of those people that when the prequels came out, I excitedly went to go see every one of them. Like, yeah, everyone was disappointed after The Phantom Menace. I really wasn't. I didn't hate The Phantom Menace. Was it what I expected, after an 18-year drought? No. Was it what I wanted? No. But did I hate it? Absolutely not. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Jar Jar. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Gungans, but it's like, I was also 19 at that point, and it's made for kids. So it's like, objectively, I could remove myself enough from that aspect of Star Wars that I could still enjoy the movie we got. I liked the plot. I liked the idea of like the Sith slowly building power. I liked all the political intrigue that were in those movies. Like, it was a good story, and a lot of people shit all over the prequels, but I'm not one of those people. So let's just get that out of the way right out of the front. Will I say Attack of the Clones is one of the worst in the franchise? Yes, I will, because the dialogue is god awful. That's the only criticism I'm really gonna level at Lucas, is the man cannot write dialogue to save his life. And when you have stuff like where, Padme tells Anakin, I love you, and he's like, no, I love you. Like, and it's like, come on, dude. And then you hear the interviews with Hayden Christensen. He's like, yeah, no, we had to deliver it the way George wanted it. And it's like, Or the I hate sand, it gets everywhere. Like, the dialogue's so bad. But again, those movies are cool. The world they exist in is cool. It follows the lore and the like feeling that Lucas set up with the original trilogy. So when I heard that he sold to Disney way back when, God, what was that, like in 2013? We all heard that, something like that. And that they were making a new sequel trilogy. I was beyond excited. I could not fucking wait. Force Awakens came out. I was not one of the detractors. I was excited as hell. It was like, oh yeah, it's like A New Hope. I get it. That's fine. I'm okay with that. A New Hope is my favorite of the entire franchise. So I'm cool with them telling us a new version of A New Hope to be like, hey, remember all that nostalgia? This is like a legacy sequel. Here are all of our new characters. They're interesting. There's new stuff that we can show with them. Like we got the new hothead. So we got Poe as the new Han Solo. We got Rey as the new Luke. You know, it's like in a weird way, Finn is kind of the new Leia, you know, like someone that was connected to the Imperials and was able to pull back and join the rep. Like there's so much cool shit there. And then we get this.
This good movie?
So now here's the thing. I went into The Last Jedi beyond excited. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, I was questioning things. I was already kind of feeling that pang of like, do I like this? I don't know that I don't like what I'm seeing, you know? And I was struggling. I was struggling the entire movie, watching this going like, oh, I don't like that, but yeah, maybe I'm missing something. And I kept thinking it was me. It wasn't the movie. It had to be me. And we're leaving the theater and I'm like, people are like, oh, did you like it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I really couldn't give a clear answer. I wasn't sure. And for the longest time, I always used the argument. I think I even said it on the show before. I always use the argument that, is it a good movie? Yeah. Is it a good sequel? No. I looked at it like the Alien 3 of the franchise, where it's like it did its own thing. Maybe it's a shitty sequel, but it has a bunch of new ideas and a bunch of cool shit, and I get why people like it. And that was the pass I gave it forever. In fact, for the fact that this is like my second least favorite in the franchise, I've watched it the most because I've tried to convince myself that I'm wrong. I kept coming back to it going like, what am I missing that other people are seeing? After watching it critically, I ain't missing shit. Rian Johnson fucking sucks. Kathleen Kennedy can bite my ass. These people don't know what they were doing, and I got 1,000 reasons why.
Oh, man, I love that. That reminds me, somebody asked me recently for some advice on how to enjoy a particular band, and it wasn't me particularly. It was in a Facebook fan group, and not to get into too much of the detail, but I'm a big fan of the Tooth and Nail Records and the overall punk hardcore like Christian underground music scene from the early to mid 90s. You know, it was like the youth group, punk music that was so popular at the time. You know, bands that came out of that are like MXPX, and later on bands that got really big like Norma Jean and Under Oath, and but some of those bands from the early days are still around, and one of them is Starflyer 59, and that's a band that I didn't get into until later, but I always would listen to all of the old Tooth and Nail Records artists. Like I listened to literally every album. I had every album except for one band that I wasn't into. And yeah, recently somebody came to me and they were like, came to the group and was like, look, I really want to like Starflyer 59 because I like all the other bands from the scene, but I've just never been able to do it. And like literally asking for advice, like, how do I like this band? And while as someone who came to like them later on, I gave my genuine advice of, okay, well, this is my experience and this is how I sort of kind of got it eventually. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? Who cares? Because I don't like The Blamed, which is the one band that I didn't like from that early group. And I was like, I didn't like them then. I don't like them now. I got nothing against them. Like I got respect for their musicianship and everyone else likes them, and I'm not going to talk shit about them. But like, I don't give a fuck about the blames. I don't care, and I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the music scene, and whatever. And but
Right.
it was just, it's kind of a weird thing to feel like pressure. Like I feel like I should like this, but I don't know how to.
Yes. No, and it's 100% true, because I encounter the same thing in the horror community. Like there are plenty of times where it's like, I mean, obviously a lot of people know me as like, oh, he's the big horror fan. There are sequels that'll come out, or like a remake, or like a revisit or a legacy sequel. And sometimes I'm just not a fan. And it's like I almost feel like I have to be a fan. Or the opposite will happen, where I will really like something like a remake, and just people will fucking hate it. And there'll be that like pressure of, how can you be a horror fan and actually like that? And it's like, no, fuck that. I hate that type of pressure, which is why, and I'm going to say this at the start before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. It is okay if you love this movie. Like, I hate it, but if you like it, cool. Like our buddy of the show, Josh Hibbard, we've talked about this ad nauseum, because he's an even bigger Star Wars fan than I am. And like, one of the things that we bonded over early on in our friendship was our mutual love of Star Wars. And he absolutely loves this film, but he always says the same thing. I can objectively look at it and realize what's bad about it, but I don't care. It's still enjoyable to me. Now that, I think everybody should be able to do. I can look at a ton of the movies I love. I talk about this in the Boogeyman's Closet all the time. Me and Mike O'May, we both fucking love Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama. Is it a good movie? Absolutely not. Is it ridiculously fun for me? Fuck yeah. I love that movie through and through, but it's a dumb fucking movie. And I'm self-aware enough to be able to go, just because I like it doesn't mean that it's good. And I think that that's sometimes something that people struggle with. So just because I'm saying I hate this doesn't cast any aspersions on people that like it. So just like, I want to get that out of the way.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to kind of lay that caveat down, Drew. And we're here to have some fun, to have a friendly debate
Absolutely.
amongst each other. And just because I like it and you don't, like, we're not gonna, like, not speak to each other after this. It's like, it's okay.
Exactly.
But it's funny you mentioned like the Alien franchise before, because I just watched Alien versus Predator Requiem again yesterday, and there's some people listening just going, "Why?" And you said again. Why would you watch it again? But I watched it because my kid hadn't seen it and wanted to, and that's a movie that I do think is really fun. I the more I watch it, the more times I've seen it, the more I enjoy it as a dumb popcorn flick. It is like hard to argue that it's a well-made movie. I think it's impossible to argue that it's a well-made movie.
Yeah.
The story doesn't make any sense. There's shitloads of plot holes. It's really like dark. Like the cinematography is dark and it's hard to see things. So it's like it's hard to argue that it's a good movie. But to me, it's a fun movie. It's like they did a slasher flick in the Alien Predator franchise like world, and I think that's fucking cool. And I have fun with watching it. But no, I mean it's not a good movie. But I don't feel that way about The Last Jedi. I do think The Last Jedi is a good movie. I think it is a well-made movie. I do think it has its flaws, like I mentioned before. But you know what? A lot of movies have flaws, including all of the other Star Wars movies. So to me, like, this is a good movie, and I'm really, really curious to hear like what you have to say, like in detail about some of the specific things that piss you off.
Oh, there's so many. It's like, where to begin? So here's the thing I will say. I do believe that with enough money and enough good actors, you can make any shitty script into a competent film, and it can look pretty, and it can be well acted. It doesn't make the story good. My main beef, like just the top layer, of the shit sundae. So the cherry up top is I have plot reasons to dislike this movie. So Force Awakens, they introduce us to these characters. We get to, and there's a mystery, there's intrigue. There's like, okay, who is Rey? They bring it up multiple times. They, kind of leave hints to her parentage over and over throughout the movie. They want you as the audience to question, who is she? Why is she important? They then do the same thing with Snoke. Who is this mysterious new leader of the First Order? Why is he powerful? What's going on? How did he resurrect the First Order? There's all these questions there. What do they do in this one? Fuck that. Don't worry about it. She ain't nobody. Her parents are a bunch of drunken stumble bums. Fuck those guys. They ain't worth anything. Snoke, we ain't gonna explain his powers. He's all powerful. He can do anything. He can do shit that even Palpatine couldn't do. But he can't see a fucking lightsaber turning next to him. Even though he was able to see it across the room, couldn't see it fucking next to him. Fuck you. That's lazy storytelling.
Okay, hang on. I gotta jump in and like rebut this one like right off the bat. So
Go for it.
I'll say my honest opinion, and this is like not like retroactive bullshit. I told you before about my experience like watching the movie for the first time, and there were things where I was like, and that's dumb. But for me, the entire throne room sequence with Rey and Kylo and Snoke, to me, it's the best part of the entire movie. The entire sequence from beginning to end is the thing I like the most about it, both from the drama, the storytelling, and just the action, like the lightsaber fight. And so I never believed what Kylo was saying when he told Rey that her parents were nobodies. From the jump. In the theater that first time, I said to myself, he's just making this up. He's just lying, because everything that Kylo was saying to Rey was about forget the past, burn it down, kill it if you have to. He was trying to convince her that her past was inconsequential. So I never thought that it was the story. I never thought it was the filmmakers telling us, haha, we pulled a fast one on you, and Rey is really like, a total nobody from the middle of nowhere. It was Kylo lying to her to convince her to come over to his side, because he didn't give a shit what the real answer was, and he didn't want her to do it either. So to me, that was never a problem that, we didn't solve your mystery. And because it's only the second movie in the trilogy, they still had another movie to tell us what the real answer was, which is what I was expecting, right? Kylo was lying to her. The real answer is coming later. And the whole thing with Snoke, I was surprised that they just launched into he's just there now, like he's just on the screen. Even though he was like mysterious in the first movie, but I thought, okay, like whatever, I can go with it, because there's lots of other examples in other Star Wars movies where we just jump to something we mentioned to now it's just on the screen and it's like a thing, and I'm like, okay, like I'm not gonna fault them for that. And and I thought the whole thing with him turning to lightsaber was a demonstration about how he was wrong, that his hubris, that he was so powerful that he could see everything, he could not be betrayed, is what he said, while Kylo Ren is right there, way more powerful than anybody even Snoke realizes, and he is able to trick Snoke, using Snoke's own methods of like looking into his brain, and he's able to trick him into turning the wrong lightsaber. And it was clever. And I thought that to me, they pulled it off. They were clearly going for that, like trying to be clever, like, haha, I'll turn the wrong lightsaber and attack my real enemy. And while some people might, think that that's cheesy or bad writing, I thought it was clever and they pulled it off.
Okay. Like I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I sure as hell didn't. But here's the thing: the fact that they did this in the second one. Now, Rian Johnson has said multiple times that he was writing this while Abrams was still filming Force Awakens, that he didn't really he wasn't beholden to Force Awakens. So, and he's also said multiple times that he's not a fan of Star Wars and he wanted to do something different, which is one of the reasons why he just kind of wanted to go in a different direction. I don't think they had it planned out to be like what Rey's parentage actually was, because what really happens comes out of nowhere in the third movie. It really does feel like, fuck, course correction. Let's do this now. To me, that it doesn't fit. But I see your point. We'll move on to the next one. The slow speed chase through space. Most of this movie is a slow speed chase through space.
Yeah, that is one of the things I will agree with you on, that I did not like from day one. Is like this whole movie is it's a slow speed car chase. Like it's like the fucking like O.J. Simpson in the white Bronco.
That's exactly what I wrote. I have in my notes. It's the fucking space version of the O.J. chase. But okay, now let's break this down. Now this is one of my biggest problems with the fucking movie. Okay, how do I even word this? So every scene, just about every scene, they introduce a new power that we have never seen in a Star Wars film, or they introduce a new MacGuffin. So now, during the slow speed chase, we are introduced to the concept that they can track through light speed. So it's like, holy shit, that's impossible. They even say it in the movie, that's impossible. It's like, well, the Imperials or the First Order did it. So, oh my gosh. And then, of course, because we have to have someone explain it, Finn and Rose figure out the whole, oh, it's a tracking beacon, but it's only going to be on the largest ship. Why? Why, if the First Order has that technology, why is it only going to be on the largest ship? And then it's like, okay, I could almost accept it. I could almost accept it if they were like, it's only on Snoke's ship. Like, maybe it's some giant generator thing. It's something that's like, okay, we can only have one ship outfitted with this technology. It's stupid, but I could accept that. What I couldn't accept was them being like, yeah, if we shut this down, we only got a 6-minute window before one of the other ships activate their tracking beacon. Then why aren't the rest of them on already?
Yeah.
Why does
be on all the time?
Yeah, why is it like, oh, no, we can only have this one tracking beacon active in any one given time, tracking this group of rebels that we are desperately trying to kill. We can't have our entire fleet outfitted with this technology to track them anywhere they go in the galaxy. No, we only have it on this one ship. But if it gets shut down, don't worry, we can turn on the others. Why? Just...
Yeah, that is definitely the thing that I dislike the most about the movie. So I can't rebut this at all. Like the slow speed car chase and this whole like weird, it's just a weird excuse to have like Finn and Rose like go on a side adventure, which I think that they needed to do. They needed something to do in the movie,
Right.
or at least Finn did. Why I do not agree with any of the horrible hate and vitriol that Rose's character and the actress who plays her have gotten over the years. I'm not a fan of Rose as a character. Like to me, it's like she doesn't need to be there. If they're going to put her in there, fine. But to me, she was just somebody for Finn to talk to because Finn and Rey were separated, and Finn was a main character they introduced in The Force Awakens who needed something to do and like literally just needed a person to talk to so that we could understand what was going on. And so to me, they invented Rose to fill that role. And I think that she's a perfectly fine character, and there's nothing wrong with just making up a character for story purposes. But she's not the most successful character, in my opinion. But I liked the side quest in general. We can talk a little bit more. I'm sure you have arguments about Canto Bite. We'll get to in a minute.
I do. I do.
But yeah, there was such an easy fix to this car chase sequence too. It's an easy. The easy fix was just that. Well, it's Snoke, right, or some other technology. But to me, the easiest one was Snoke shows up. His giant, disembodied head shows up and talks to Hux on Hux's ship at the beginning as the rebels are leaving. Snoke could have easily tracked them through light speed by sensing where they popped out on the other end, because he clearly is super strong. And if Luke Skywalker can, send his like astral form across the galaxy, then Snoke should be able to sense where they are if he picks up their scent, like a bloodhound or whatever. So the easy solution is Snoke knows where they are. And instead of having them run away and say, oh, we're going to run out of gas, which is dumb, it should just be like, we jumped to light speed. They followed us. Holy fuck. Jump to light speed again. They followed us. Holy fuck. We can't escape them. We keep jumping and jumping and jumping, and every time we jump, they're right behind us. So we need to find a way to get our ships somewhere that is safe, where suddenly jumping to light speed is no longer an escape route, which is like, that's a cool idea, because in Star Wars, they've always been able to jump to light speed to escape, and not being able to have that as your escape route is peril they introduced in the story, which I think is fucking great. But it's an easy solution that's actually simpler than the overcomplicated plot they came up with the stupid tracking device. But whatever. Like I said, there's lots of dumb stuff in Star Wars movies, so like I give it a pass.
I can't give it a pass. But here's the thing with what you just said. What you just said not only is a better concept, but here's how you play that up. Here's how you create the peril for that. what were they trying to do? They were trying to run. They were trying to get to another base. Well, if Snoke is able to track them every time they jump from light speed, and then suddenly it's like, oh shit, they're right behind us. They don't want to lead them to the rebel bases. So now they're literally dead in the water. They're out in the fucking space with no help. They can't radio for help because then they would be signaling to the First Order where their allies are. So they can't get any help. So now it's the whole, we're going to have to infiltrate Snoke's ship and take him down. Like, you know, let's hope for the best. That is a much better idea. But even different from that, another thing, we could have avoided the entire Canto Bight side quest, which I got a whole bitchy thing about anyway. But here's how you avoid it, and how you make the character of Holdo important. Because let me back up. Every character they've introduced in this franchise, like the main characters, Finn, Rey, Poe, hell, Rose, like all of them, Maz, I like all of them. I got no problem with all. The only character that I have a beef with is Holdo, because I feel she's poorly written. Like the whole, God, she makes me so angry. So we have Poe, who is like this battle-hardened, fucking brash rebel pilot who has proven himself again and again and again, but he fucks up big time. He disobeys orders, and a bunch of rebels get killed in the opening of the movie. Now, I'm not even talking about my problems with the opening of the movie. We'll get back to that, because I got a fuckload of problems with the opening too. But I understand why they now would be like, you know what? We're not gonna tell you because you disobeyed orders. We're not gonna tell you. But it doesn't make sense to everything else we've seen with the rebels. That's not how they operate. They're not gonna be like, stand down, soldier. You're not allowed to know the plan, even though we're gonna have you in every one of our main plans. We're not gonna tell you anything about the plan. You're clearly freaking out and having panic attacks, but stand down, soldier. We're not gonna tell you shit. That is fucking dumb. Why didn't they just be like, you know, look, we have a plan. We're working on it, you know, whatever, like give him some kind of reassurance. But no, they wanted to go all girl boss with it and have Holdo be like, fuck you, you're too brash, rah, rah, rah. Here's how they fix that. Here's how you make that character interesting. How did they track from Lightspeed? It's not a tracking beacon. There's a traitor amongst them. They don't know who it is. Okay. Holdo has no clue who it is. So that's why her and Leia aren't telling Poe anything. It could be anybody. Somebody could be under the influence of Snoke. They don't know. They're trying to suss it out. That's how you get rid of the entire Canto Bight side mission. That's how you have why Rose is down there protecting the fucking escape pods, because it's like, oh, the fucking traitor could hop ship any moment. We're gonna find out who the fuck this is and find out how they're leading the First Order to right where we are. Mm-hmm. You could have stayed on the ship. That also would explain, you know, like why they're not, again, jumping around light speed to light speed to light speed, wasting fuel, because everywhere they go, someone on their ship is going to be able to give away their location. That is how you keep that infighting interesting, how you give a purpose for why everyone suddenly is like, fuck you, Poe. You know, like, because it doesn't make sense to the rest of the three movies. It's like, why is suddenly the higher ups being like, you know what, fuck you, Poe? Like, where he causes a mutiny? No, that's dumb.
Yeah. Like, well, okay. Yeah. And see, my rebuttal to that is I think Holdo is an interesting character because she is different than other characters we've seen in the Rebellion. She has her own individual personality that I like. I like that she's calm, but she is assertive and collected and knows what she's doing and has a plan, but she's not a hothead. And I think that's exactly what that sequence needed, and probably why, you know, Leia wanted her to be in charge or had her like next in line in command, because you need somebody who isn't a hothead, because everybody in these fucking movies are all a bunch of hotheads, including Leia, who just, they see something and they react, you know, without thinking it through. And I think what they were trying, or what Holdo's intention was to, you know, knock Poe down a peg, because it was his overconfidence and arrogance and hubris that killed a whole lot of people. And then he's trying to be like, okay, well, whatever, like, it's not a big deal. And then trying to be in charge again. And he's like, look, you're not fucking in charge. You're not a general. You're not an admiral. Like, I know this is a rebellion and they don't necessarily follow the same, you know, strict military like hierarchy. But at the same time, like, you're trying to blow off the fact that you did something dumb and killed a bunch of people. And you're just trying to be like, yeah, okay, well, whatever, on to the next thing. And I like the fact that Holdo was trying to teach him a lesson. Like, you need to take a step back and stop just running brashly into every situation, shooting first and asking questions later, because you're killing people. You're making fucking mistakes. And I think that's and whether you agree with whether that was a good idea, like that's what Holdo's purpose was. And I like characters in stories that I don't necessarily agree with. I do think it makes logical sense. If it was illogical, I'd be mad about it. I don't think it's illogical. And would I have done that in Holdo's place? No. But again, I think Holdo's an interesting character because she is doing, something. She's trying to do something different, but I love the fact that later on, she turns into a sacrificial lamb, she becomes a hero, but she was a hero in an understated way, which is another lesson that she was trying to teach to Poe, that even Leia literally said out loud to Poe, was that she was a hero without running around trying to be Superman all the time. She just did the right thing when she needed to do it, and look, she helped to save all of the people who got to this little mining planet. Side note, because I'm sure it's probably on your list, but I do have a problem with how they got to that little salt planet at the end. That is one of the things that annoys me. But yeah, I mean, I love the idea of a traitor. I think that that's an easy solution to everything. But I'm actually kind of surprised that you have an argument against Holdo, because to me, she's one of the things that makes the most sense.
See, here's the thing. She's Mon Mothma Jr., so she's basically the same character as Mon Mothma.
Okay.
Mon Mothma we have seen that type of character before, and I have no problem with her being like, hey, Poe's a hothead, we're gonna cut you down a peg. But again, time and a place. You're in the middle of a fucking chase. Your crew is panicked. Everyone's losing hope, and you're just like, oh, just remember, even when you can't see hope, it's there. It's like, no, that's bad leadership. You're not keeping your crew together. You're seeing them fucking break apart. They're losing their shit. And the fact that she didn't know who Finn was really kind of bothered me, because he was just like a stormtrooper and a technician. No, Finn helped. He helped to stop the fucking giant Death Star 4.0 or whatever it was, the Star Killer base. He helped. You would know, as a leader of the Alliance, you would know who he is. Why are you fucking downplaying Finn all this? There were moments of Holdo that really bothered me. And this is just a side note. This is just a personal thing. I hate the whole girl boss thing, where it's like we can only be a girl boss by shitting on a male character. To me, it's like the girl in the refrigerator trope. It's lazy writing. You can be a girl boss without being like, haha, tear that guy down a peg. No, you can still be a badass female character, just like you don't have to have a woman in peril for the guy to be a hero. That's kind of a trope that's leaning on a trope that bothers me. And I felt like they leaned a little too heavily on that with Holdo. Not that she's a bad character. I just feel like she's poorly written. And I got a whole problem with the Holdo maneuver, but we'll get into that.
All right. Next topic.
Okay. So, Canto Bight. Whew. Okay. First of all, let's just remove ourselves from the movie for a second. This is a movie made by one of the biggest media companies in the world. One of the richest media companies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they take 20 minutes to basically tell us, we understand you poor folk. Rich people bad. We get you. We're on your side. No! I will not ignore the man behind the curtain, Mr. Mouse. Stop it. That just irritated me on a personal level. But what is the point of anything that happens on Canto Bight? Anything. So they go there. And first of all, let's just examine this. Maz tells them that there's one code breaker that she knows, only one in the galaxy that she would trust. She can't give him a name, but she can tell him he's going to be at a high roller table and here's what he's going to be wearing. How you know what the man's wearing and what table he's going to be at, but you don't know his fucking name? That's just weird. So yeah. They go to Canto Bight. They get there and it's like, oh, it's a bunch of fucking rich people, yada yada. Oh, isn't it funny that little leprechaun dude thinks BB-8's a coin or a slot machine? Ha ha ha! It's funny. Okay, so whatever. They get captured. They get thrown in the prison. It's like, Oh, you just barely missed, fucking Rico Suave over there gambling at the table that you wanted to go talk to. So he's out of the picture. Well, shit, what are we going to do? Well, let's loudly discuss our plan while in a prison cell with another person. Let's just keep talking about what we're going to do as secretive members of the Alliance. Oh, shit, here's Space Porky Pig. He just woke up. Like, he wakes up, oh, I can do it. And they're like, oh, no, sorry, friend. We don't want your help. And then he just opens the cell. Why was he waiting? What was he waiting for? Was he waiting there for plot reasons? Like, why? If this guy could break out of the cell at any given fucking time, why was he hanging out in the fucking cell in the first place? He just broke out like it was nothing. He didn't need their help to break out. He just broke out. Like, oh, hey, cool. Then again, why does BB-8 have a fucking slot machine gun? Like, what point does an astromech droid need one of those? But I'll look past that. That's just a personal thing that annoyed me. I'm like, come on. Like, it would have been more funny to have, like, a bunch of guards laying on the floor, like, tied up and have BB-8 there, be like, how the fuck did he do that? And just never explain it. That would have been much funnier to me than, I'm shooting a lot of coins that the leprechaun gave me. But then they go down a fucking sewer grate to escape. Why don't they ever cover the grate? They leave both grates open. So it's like, hey, guards, by the way, this is where we went. We left this way. And we get the little, the ragamuffins in the racing area. And, oh, look, we're rebels. And, like let us free. And then they escape on the backs of the little beasts. They get out. And then they get to the ship that, Space Porky Pig and BB-8 stole. What was the point of any of that? Like, why is that scene even in the fucking movie other than to bloat the runtime for another 30 minutes?
Yeah. So this is one I can't argue with. This is, while I did say I thought that the slow car chase was the dumbest part of the movie, and I think it is because it's such bad writing. Like there's such an easy way to solve that problem. If you want to have the First Order chasing the Resistance and have like a car chase movie, fine. We already explained how you can fix that. So it's like super lazy writing, and that's why it's the thing I dislike the most. But this is the thing I dislike the second most is, Canto Bight to me, this entire sequence is completely pointless. There's no reason it ever should have been in the movie. We don't need the code breaker. We don't need the casino. We don't need any of this. But like I said before, Finn needed a side quest. He needed something to do because Poe has his story, Rey has her story, on the island with Luke Skywalker. Finn needed something to do, and it was like they just made up this side quest because, well, we introduced Finn and he doesn't really have like a purpose in this movie. So that's it. It feels lazy because it's like that's the only reason that they put it in the movie is because they needed to do something with Finn, this really important and popular character that they introduced. They couldn't just leave him in the coma the whole movie. But again, to me, this is an easy fix. There's an easy fix to this whole side quest thing, which is that you just use Maz Kanata. Like they introduced her briefly with this dumb message about the codebreaker. All they had to do was change it to something along the lines of like, oh no, Maz is in trouble. And she's like, there's like a distress call, but everybody else is like running from the First Order. And so like, we don't have resources to go help. But like at the same time, this is a connection to the rest of the rebellion. Like you mentioned before, we can't have like, communication because then the First Order will know where we are. Well, if they were to sneakily get away to find where Maz is, suddenly now Finn would be able to deliver the message in person to the rest of the rebellion who could then communicate amongst themselves without having to have it come from the fucking Holdo ship, and like Perfect. That to me, that's an easy solution. And then it doesn't matter what you do on the side quest. It can be anything. It can be Canto Bight if you wanted it to be. I don't give a fuck. Put the weird horse monsters and the little kids in it. You could have done all of that, but the purpose would have been get off the ship so that you have characters who are headed toward the same end goal, but now you have like it's like you take your character and send him on a secret side mission, ultimately coming back to the same goal, right? Which is we have to get the rebellion together.
Exactly. No, I think that's 100% a better idea than what they did. One thing I want to point out, just to go back to the Holdo thing for a minute, it wasn't just that she didn't tell Poe her plan; she didn't tell any of the crew. Like the entire crew. So it's not just I get it. Poe was a hothead. I understand that. But how come none of the crew were informed that like they have a plan? Like their leadership should have been like, we have a plan. we're just trying, like, maybe even something like, we're trying to figure out how they're tracking us, but don't worry, we have a plan. Like, if they could have said so, like, give some kind of like, hey, we're with you. You're putting your life on the line for us, but we're with you. Rather than that, just like, trust me, bro. Like, that irritates me. Like, because we've never seen that with the Alliance throughout any of the other films, including the next one. Like, we've never seen the Alliance act like that. That bothers me. Like I said, we have the Mon Mothma character, but she explained the plans. Like, it's irritates. But anyway, moving on to the Canto Bite thing.
Yeah.
So, like, the whole point, and maybe I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but the whole thing felt like a pandering thing from Disney, where it was like, we understand the little people. We get, because they even have that moment where frickin' Rose talks about how she grew up on a mining planet, and like, oh, this is beautiful and everything, but she's like, look closer, and you see like that bastard torturing the animals, and then you see that guy like kicking the kids around that clean the animal cages, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of horrible shit going on under the surface, where all these rich people are being rich and living their best lives. It's on the backs of all these broken people. It's like, okay, yeah, Star Wars has used that message again and again and again, but you really played up the rich people factor at a time when people, not to get political, but when the common man was getting a little sick and starting to scream, eat the rich. We're starting to get a little sick of that. So we have one of the richest fucking companies in the world be like, no, we understand you little people. We get the plights. It's like, fucking miss me with that pompous shit. That pissed me off.
Yeah. and that very well could be true. And on another day, I might have said, used your own argument back at you, which is that, yeah, what Rian Johnson and his screenwriters were just making this shit up at the same time that the previous movie was still like filming or in production. And this was all just made up bullshit that didn't have any like overall purpose other than the characters need to do something.
Yeah.
But, today I'm agreeing with you because I'm trying not to just blame everything on The Rise of Skywalker, which I think is an absolutely atrocious movie that
I'll agree with you there.
Ruins the end of the whole saga, and especially this trilogy. And all of the things that we're complaining about, and a lot of the arguments that you're making to me are like, no. The real movie that did that was The Rise of Skywalker. That's the real culprit in this argument.
We can't argue about that one because I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, exactly. We do agree, which is why I'm trying to leave it out. But it is an undeniable fact that The Rise of Skywalker was a movie written by committee and like a 10-ton pile of producer notes from on high in Disney, because that movie is nothing but new action figures, new toys, like new stuff that we can like spin off into TV shows or whatever. There was no intention made to wrap up the trilogy, to wrap up the saga, to answer any of the mysteries, to do anything that J.J. Abrams promised in The Force Awakens. They just made a brand new movie as if they had several more to go. And then at the end, we're like, oh shit, this is the end. I guess we're all okay now. Like, you're cool, I'm cool. And it pisses me off. And the reason I'm mentioning it now, because back that up to the argument that The Last Jedi is a bad sequel, or I should say the reason that, I'm assuming you're telling me that it's a bad sequel is it doesn't carry on the story that was set forth in the one right before it in The Force Awakens. It doesn't answer any of the mysteries. It doesn't pick up any of the promises. It doesn't pick up any of the story threads. It just uses the characters, right? But again, I once The Rise of Skywalker came out, I immediately started to like The Last Jedi even more than I already did, because I realized that, J.J. Abrams never had a fucking plan in the first place either. Or if he did, he didn't give a shit and he just kept cashing checks that Disney was sending them because he was the guy who had all the answers, and yet he still didn't answer any of them in a satisfactory way. So it was clear that they either never had a plan, and so it doesn't matter what Rian Johnson did because there never was an answer to who Rey's parents were or who Snoke was or any of that. Like, if there was never an answer in the first place and it was always a question mark, then who gives a shit what Rian Johnson did? Like, he didn't like do anything flying in the face of J.J. Abrams' plans because the plans didn't exist.
Oh yeah, and again, that's squarely at the feet of Kathleen Kennedy and Disney, because they had Lucas's notes. And Lucas even said in multiple interviews, he gave them his outline for what he envisioned as the sequel trilogy. And they just kind of threw it away. They were just like, nah, we're going to do our own thing. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm okay with that if you had a cohesive trilogy. Like if you wanted to do a standalone movie, fine. If The Last Jedi was a standalone Star Wars film that didn't have Leia and Luke and was part of was their final chapter, like I would not dislike this movie so much. I'd be able to look at it in the same way that I look at some of the Star Wars TV stuff, where it's like, okay, yeah, that wasn't my favorite, but I get why people dig it. But because it was like, all right, we're going to end their story. This is the second part in a trilogy where you're promising me an overarching story, and then you deliver this weird kind of middle child that doesn't make any sense to the other two movies, that then none of the movies fucking makes it. Like the whole thing is a problem. The entire sequel trilogy is a problem. I just don't hate Force Awakens. I think The Force Awakens is a solid start, even though it retreads a lot of the same steps. And again, the whole trilogy retreads a lot of the same steps. Like, I get it. I understand the point of The Last Jedi. They keep saying again and again and again, let go of the past, kill the past if you have to become what, like, I get what they're saying. They're like, okay, guys, we're doing our own thing. We're going to do a new story, but we're also going to hit the story beats of Empire. Empire was a downer. The Empire had the upper hand. You know, heroes got either captured or killed. Like, we get it. Like, you know, Yoda dies, Han is captured, Luke loses his hand. It's a series of down notes, or however they said it in Clerks. You know, like, I get that. I mean, hell, even the fucking Salt Planet, it's like Hoth 2.0. Like, it follows the same story beats. I get what they were trying to do. I just don't think they pulled it off well. Like, as far as like the overarching thing that Disney was trying to do. I mean, because obviously Force Awakens hits beats of A New Hope. Last Jedi hits beats of Empire. And fucking Rise of Skywalker hits beats of Jedi. I get it. It's just not done well.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. And again, we don't need to talk about Rise of Skywalker. And I keep trying to say, no, like, don't go there. Just focus on Last Jedi. Like, it's its own thing. But at the same time, I love the argument that you just made, and I make the same argument all the time. And it's not like, you know, our argument is like it's been in the fandom forever. And even George Lucas has said, you know, that what is it? He's like, it's like poetry. He creates these like parallels between, you know, the different movies, even the titles. Like, you look at the titles of the movies, you have, you know, A New Hope and The Phantom Menace. They kind of go together, right? And it's like they're introducing a character or a concept. And then you have The Empire Strikes Back and Attack of the Clones. It's like, oh, the bad guys are coming, right? And then the last one, of course, is the most obvious in the first two trilogies is Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. They go, they're bookends. They go together. And then you look at the new trilogy, and the titles don't fit the pattern, which annoys the shit out of me, because like if the first movie had been called The Last Jedi, I would have been like, okay, cool, New Hope, Phantom Menace, Last Jedi, it fits. But like, they fucked it up immediately with The Force Awakens being like a present tense verb, and I'm like, no, they didn't do any of that, so you're already screwing up your pattern. But yes, Force Awakens is just, it's like a remake of A New Hope. But I've argued in the past that I think it's exactly what the franchise needed. Like, that's exactly what people wanted. It's fan service in the best possible way. Just give the Star Wars fans what they want. X-Wings fights and Death Stars and fucking lightsabers, and just give them what they want, you know?
Exactly.
But, you know, and then you get to The Last Jedi, and it's supposed to be the Empire installment. And again, I'm with you. It's totally the Empire installment. I don't think it hits the same story beats, but it hits the same atmosphere. It's the low point. It's the bottom of the barrel. It's the Act 2. How are we going to get out of this, you know, storytelling? And then you get to Rise of Skywalker, and it's just toy commercial. It doesn't hit any of the same beats as either of the previous, you know, third installments in the trilogies. It doesn't follow the title pattern. It doesn't do anything correctly. It just completely like farts its way out of the theater at the end.
And you know what's exceptionally annoying about that being a giant toy commercial is they barely had any toys. Like,
yes.
Rise of Skywalker had like I think there was like 5 figures that they made. Like they made these, I forget what they were called, but they were like a scale that wasn't quite the 3 3/4 inch scale that everyone knew, or the 6-inch Black Series scale that they've been doing. It was like this in between scale that nobody bought. And then they did a couple like random figures in the Black Series, and then that was it. And it was like, really? I'm not gonna get any like 3 3/4 inch figures of like Lando's last scene, or like come on, what the fuck?
Yeah, and again, this isn't about Rise of Skywalker, but there's an entire sequence where they introduce like this guy who like makes droids and this like cute little like dog-looking droid character whose name I have just actively forgotten. And it's like it's 20 minutes of the movie where you're like, oh, cool, there's the new Porg toy, or there's, you know what I mean? It's like they were just introducing the new toy, and I was like, why is this in the movie? This character, this little stupid droid, doesn't do anything, literally nothing. It's not even like an interesting background character. Like I thought the Porgs were perfectly fine because they were interesting background characters that weren't important. You know, it's like some of the characters in like, you know, Jabba's palace, like just interesting background characters to make toys out of that people like. But like they spent so much time on this stupid droid that nobody cared about. Anyway, back to Last Jedi.
The Porgs were kind of, almost like the Jawas in a sense, where it's like they're there, they're on the Jedi Island, they're there. It's kind of like the Jawas were just on Tatooine. Like of course the Jawas actually had a point in the story where it's like they're the ones that sold them the droids. But at the same time, it's just like they're just characters that live there. Like none of the Jawas are an important character, so it makes sense. Like the Islanders that are on the Jedi Island, you know, that take care of the Jedi Temple, and the Porgs are just kind of like their flavor surrounding the Jedi Island. I'm fine with that. My only beef with the Porgs is the Chewie eating the Porg scene, where it's like, okay, like. And I know, and I'm going to be quoting CinemaSins here because like I get it, like a lot of people have called this out, but it's like, so Chewie had no problem murdering and cooking a Porg, but then because one gives him sad eyes, he can't eat it. Like you literally murdered and cooked it, but then because one like looked at you with a quivering lower lip and you growled at it and made it fly away, now you're like, oh, I can't enjoy my lunch. So you let them nest in the circuitry of the Millennium Falcon. I don't think he would do that. That seems weird.
Yeah. And see, to me, that's just like some fun little business in the background to like, again, to kind of give Chewbacca something to do. But
yeah,
and I think about the Ewoks. Like, there's so much dumb stuff with the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. Like, they're dumb teddy bears, but they're also like gonna eat the main characters, like literally, you know.
And that's why I will always argue for the Ewoks. I'm like, the Ewoks are fucking badass. They will kill and eat you.
Yes. And I agree. I defend the Ewoks all along. You know, older fans would be like, we got fucking teddy bears in the third installment. What the fuck? You know, but, you know, as a kid in the age group that it was intended to be for, made for a kid's movie, like, I love the Ewoks. But to me, it's the same argument. It's like these cute little characters who have this, like, you know, there's these, like, there's these dumb little, like, you know, pieces of like comedic business that they're doing just to be like, haha, like, aren't they cute and funny? And that's all it was. The Porgs were just an excuse to, you know, honestly, again, give Chewbacca something to do, because he doesn't fucking do anything in The Last Jedi. He has no story arc until Rise of Skywalker when they killed him. Oh no, they didn't. Wait, it's a bait and switch, because fuck that movie. But anyway.
Oh, I have wiped so much of Rise of Skywalker from my brain, I can't even argue other than I don't like it. But going back to this, so one last thing I just want to comment on when Finn and Rose and Space Porky Pig are escaping Canto Bight, and he does the whole, like, you know, the machine of war, you know, they're so this guy is selling to both the rebels and the First Order, yada yada yada. That's poignant. I get it. That's real. That's fucking real. That's reality. But there's one thing that is said here that it got under my skin in the theater, and it stayed under my skin for all these years. Finn comments, wow, this ship can really move, while they're in light speed. Are there different levels of light speed? I'm just...
Yeah.
That really... Like, it just... When he said it, it like stuck in my brain in the theater, and I was like, wait, no, light speed is light speed, isn't it? I mean, if there are different levels, then sure as shit, the Millennium Falcon, that giant rust bucket's going to go slower. Shouldn't the Imperials be able to catch it? Like they made the whole point of it, jump to light speed. We can't catch it. Like, no, there's one. It's light speed. That's the speed.
Yeah, it's on or it's off. It's like that argument of like, like this one goes to 11, but like why don't you just make 10 louder? But
Right,
this one goes to 11.
Yes, that is the fucking argument. 100%.
Oh man. So Mike, I gotta ask, and I'm sorry because I know you have a bullet list that you're going through, but since we're talking about porgs and the island and all of that, I gotta ask how you feel about Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi.
Okay. I hate what they did with Luke. I absolutely hate what they did with Luke. Luke was not Yoda. Luke was always the beacon of hope. This character, so much so that he believed that fucking Darth Vader could be saved. Luke Skywalker is and always was the beacon of hope. So they turn him into an old curmudgeon that has cut himself off from the Force, but still somehow uses the Force repeatedly over and over and over and over again, even though he cut himself off from the Force. But that's a side note. Like they turned him into this angry, lost soul. I hate that. Like that is not they ruined the hero's journey. They ruined Luke Skywalker. Like that is not Luke Skywalker. You just made Yoda 2.0. Why? Like, why would you do that? Like, I get it. Oh, he fucked up. He feels responsible for Kylo turning to the dark side. He thought he could save him. Okay, you're mirroring Obi-Wan's story and Qui-Gon's story. They thought they could save Anakin. He turned to the dark side. The council was like, "No, Obi-Wan, you can't. You can't change him." And Obi-Wan doesn't listen, and he tries anyway, and he fails, and he beats himself up for he basically stops being a Jedi because, oh shit, I helped to create the biggest weapon used against the fucking world or the universe in Darth Vader. So they just did that again, but with Luke. That doesn't make sense to his character. It at all. Like that, I hate it. Like I hate it.
Okay. Yeah, and see, and I don't. And I think it does make sense. And while that's not the choice that I would have made. Like if I was writing the screenplay, I would not have gone in that direction. But I don't hate it because we mentioned before, Star Wars is cyclical. It's repeating itself over again. They have the same themes, right down to like how many times have they fucking blown up a Death Star? Holy shit. It's like they do a lot of the same themes over and over again. And I think, or what I like about the fact that Luke Skywalker fell into the same trap that Obi-Wan fell into, that Qui-Gon fell into, that Yoda fell into, is the message that he delivers in the movie is that is one of hubris and arrogance, is that the Jedi religion, and they call it a religion in this movie more than in any other one. And maybe this is a political message. I don't know what the screenwriters were thinking, but it very much comes across to me as somebody who is part of a religion who's realizing that, holy crap, I've spent my whole life proselytizing this religion to other people only to realize that I was just full of myself. It was all an ego trip, and I never really knew what I was talking about. And he has this, midlife crisis, bottom of the barrel kind of a moment. And I don't necessarily think that he was correct in his opinion that like, oh, the Jedi fucked up everything. It should end. Like this religion sucks. Like I think he's just depressed and he's taking it to this extreme. But I do think it's an important message that yes, a lot of the shit that happens in these movies is because Jedi are too big for their fucking britches and think they know everything, and they want to tell everybody how to run their lives and run their governments and what to do. And you get the dark side, and you get a lot of the different political and government factions directly in opposition to the Jedi. On a personal level, while the Jedi are like heroic characters, I think that their teachings of like, turn off your emotions doesn't make any sense, and
Mhm.
it's a weird religious teaching. But I like the fact that he was basically realizing, hey, we have fucked up and fucked up and fucked up over and over again, and we need to somehow break the cycle. And then Yoda comes back to tell him the same thing, like, hey, Yoda's Force Ghost is like, failure is the best lesson. Like, and I think that it's important for Yoda to be there to say that, because it makes the cyclical repetitive pattern of falling into the same thing over and over again kind of makes sense. He's saying everybody has to do it, everybody has to fail. It's the best lesson. And then we get this badass moment where Luke Skywalker is like, he sort of like dusts himself off and is like, well, fuck, I've been like up my own ass this whole time, I need to get back out in the world and go help these people. And I'll say he goes, right? He goes to the Salt Planet and participates in the fight, and he's a fucking badass in the way that you want Luke Skywalker to be a badass in that fight with Kylo Ren.
That I agree. That last part you said, I agree with the fight. I think that was awesome. I still have my problems with it because of force powers, but we're going to get into that in a moment. But I do like that. But here's my problem with what you had said before. I totally agree. You hit the nail on the head of what they were saying. 100%. That is exactly what they were saying. And it makes sense to all of that. Like, everything you said makes sense. Here's why I don't like it, though. Because if you, like, A New Hope, what was the New Hope? The New
Luke.
Hope was Luke. Yes.
Yeah,
he
agreed.
was showing you that there was hope. And then it's like, okay, Luke finds out that Vader, his biggest enemy, like the guy who killed his mentor, the guy who apparently killed thousands of fucking people in the galaxy, is his father. And he's just like, he loses all of his hope there.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes back stronger in Jedi. And not only does he come back stronger, but he comes back and is like, I don't believe that the good in my father is gone. Like, I will hold on to hope in spite of being shown again and again and again how wrong the Jedi have been. And we see that. We see the downfall of the Jedi. That was the whole point of the prequels, where it's like, hey guys, this is why Luke was so special in the other movies, because all of these Jedis, their own hubris, fucked them over. They gave the rise. They're the reason that Anakin became what he became. Luke is the one that saved him. Luke is the one that brought him back. Luke created that new hope. So then to just turn around and repeat the same story beats that we've already seen, to me, that doesn't make sense. Now, if they wanted to do this where it's like Luke got, too pompous, too full of himself, or maybe even too powerful, however you want to do it, and he ends up fucking up with Kylo, and he repeats the same beats that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon made with his father, and he realizes that mistake, and he hides because he's scared, or because he feels this tremendous level of guilt and he's depressed. You know what? I can, like, that internal struggle, that fighting with himself, that trying to figure it out, I could have gone there. But the fact that they turned him into Yoda 2.0, he's this sarcastic old curmudgeon that is just super powerful but ain't going to use it. Like, you're retreading the same steps. Like, it's now where I'm getting into that argument that people have with Force Awakens, where you're retreading the steps too closely. So that's my beef with that whole thing with Luke. But one thing I want to cut, you brought up Yoda. Don't get me wrong, I love anytime I get to see Yoda, I'm happy. I love Yoda. Yoda's a great character. Always will love Yoda. I got one big, huge fucking problem with Yoda in this movie. If fucking Force ghosts can use lightning, where the hell is the Legion of Dead Jedi taking down the First Order?
Yes.
Fuck
I
that.
agree. Yeah.
We have never in any other bit of Star Wars fiction seen Force ghosts capable of fucking causing destruction. Like, no. Influence, sure. Speaking, reaching out, communicating, abso-fucking-lutely. Using forces of nature as a weapon, never. And if that was capable, why the fuck would they even care if they got killed? Because they're like, strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you can imagine. Ha ha, fuck you, told you. Lightning bolts, bitches. Like, right? That's some horse shit. Like, that irritated the hell out of me.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that one too. It's a dramatic and cool scene. It feels like something that they did because it was cool, but they didn't really think it through. But it's also consistent with a lot of the other movies, or at least several other ones, because there are multiple times throughout all of the movies, especially in the prequels, where they just make up Jedi powers because it works in the scene. Like, it fits the plot of what they would like to write in that particular scene. So they're like, yeah, sure, Jedis can move at, like, flash speeds, and then they never do it at other times when it's fucking important.
Right, but well, okay, so I will agree and disagree with you on that. I will agree with you in the sense that yes, in the movies we have not seen that. So 100% I agree with you. And if we're just talking about the films, that totally doesn't make any sense. But in the expanded universe, which at the time George Lucas was not discounting, he was not saying the expanded universe wasn't part of,
No, it was all canon.
Yeah, Lucas has gone back to all of the expanded universe and has allowed that to play out. And in the expanded universe, the Jedis had all these powers, but it was like the Jedis could do stuff like, move fast, they could leap far distances, all that. They had kind of some low-key Superman powers. But then like the Sith had stuff like the Force lightning, all the, like, the more vicious, angry powers that we could see. So he played with that a little bit in the prequels. But yes, I will agree with you in the context of the movies, it did seem like they were making up powers.
Yeah. Well, and I'll change or alter my argument a bit to say that the powers that we demonstrate or we see on screen, they do sometimes seem like they just come out of nowhere, but they're also like not used consistently. Like, to your point,
yes,
if Force ghosts can affect the real world, where are all of the other Force ghosts they should be fighting alongside the rebellion, and there should be fucking thousands of them, because all the powerful Jedi throughout, like, tens of thousands of years of history, because again, according to even the current in canon, like, extended universe books and stuff, the Jedi have been around for tens of thousands of years, and so there'd be at least a couple of hundred of these guys who were strong enough to become Force ghosts in such a long period of time. But like, again, all the way back to the Phantom Menace, which I don't want to get into that, but I will say the Phantom Menace to me is a perfect example of a dumbass movie that I love. I have a million problems with it. I can, pick it apart scene by scene about how many dumb decisions they made, but I still love it because it's a fun movie to enjoy. I like watching it. I enjoy the experience of it, and I just turn my brain off. But like, the perfect example is, the fight at the end with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul, and those stupid like energy walls keep coming down and blocking Obi-Wan while he's trying to get to Darth Maul before he kills Qui-Gon. And it's like, if the guy can move at supersonic speeds and he's trying to run 20 feet from one wall to the next, how come he doesn't run the entire distance as soon as the wall comes up?
Right,
Why not that?
exactly.
Because it's just inconsistent across every movie. And when you take a step back and you think about it, you're like, look at the plot of every single movie, and every time that there's a Jedi who's, in a scene or in a fight, and if they can move at supersonic speeds, they can jump really high, they can read minds, they can control things telekinetically with their brains, they can make people, like, can influence people's thoughts and decisions, all of these things. Hell, lightsabers can cut through anything like a knife through butter. The entire saga is different because every movie would be like 10 minutes long of Jedi just kicking ass and like winning every single time. Because how do you fight against these Supermen?
Exactly. But now that we're on the topic of powers, I have to bring this up because this is one of my biggest beefs in this entire movie. I mentioned at the top that they introduce a new fucking power or a new MacGuffin all the time. The Force powers introduced in this movie bother the fuck out of me. Now, okay, we get the Force telephone, that Rey and Kylo have. They're playing a game of Force telephone back and forth throughout most of the movie. We do find out that was because of Snoke, that Snoke linked the two of them together. Okay, cool. So now we know that that's possible. Well, again, to your point earlier in the film, if Snoke is the only one powerful enough to do that, then why isn't he using it in other means? Like, I'm gonna fucking watch the rebellion. Again, it doesn't make sense. There's the inconsistency of how he uses his powers. But here's my problem with Force telephone. Force telephone can now make matter go with it.
Oh, because when the water shows up on his glove,
and the fact that they were able to touch, like they physically touched, like they were able to feel one another, like, because she even says it's not like I felt his, his presence, I felt his aura, I felt his mind. It was when we touched, and it's like, did you? I mean, and that's the question. were they actually there with one another? Because Kylo got wet, like he was in the rain, and it's like, oh, look, I brought water with me. The hell? Like, how does that work? So, and if that was a possibility, like, and I get it, like we can rewind back to Skywalker and be like, oh, Snoke is one of the many failed clones of Palpatine, blah, blah, blah. Palpatine's that powerful, yada, yada, yada. Okay, if Palpatine was that fucking powerful, why wasn't he doing that before? Why wasn't he using, why was he using a fucking or was it the holocron or whatever it is that they communicate with? Why was he communicating with Vader like that if this was a possibility in the first place? It's just, it is that inconsistency, but it feels like it's too big of a power for that.
Yeah.
But my other problem is the force projection. Now, okay. Oh boy. I love that thing with Luke. I think it looks awesome. I really do. I think it's a cool fight. It's a poignant moment. We get the moment where Kylo says the name of the movie during that fight. He's like, I would have killed the last Jedi. And it's like,
Roll
he
credits.
said the thing. Exactly. So it's like, it's a cool sequence. I will not argue that. Here's where I will argue. Luke shows up in the base, goes and physically confronts Leia, like holds her hand, talks to her, gives her an object. He gives her Han's dice. Now, we're going to find out in a little while, oh, that was a force projection too. However, it doesn't disappear until after Luke's dead.
Yeah.
It stays, it lingers long enough for Kylo to find them and pick up the force projection. He physically picks it up and holds it in his hand to watch it disappear after Luke is dead, which, again, Luke dies of being tired. I'm sick of Jedi dying of being tired. That is dumb. Yoda, it made sense. He's over 900 years old. Whatever. Luke, you're just an old curmudgeon. He's like, I got real tired after that fight. I'm dead. I'm dead now. Like, stop it. That's irritating.
Yes. Yeah, I can't argue with that too. Plus, I thought it was dumb that they even used those dice because they didn't really introduce them earlier enough in the overall series for them to have any importance. Like, even if we briefly saw them before, sure, but like they didn't explain the importance of it until Solo came out, like after this movie. Yep. So I do agree. I thought it was a weird thing. They needed something to try to have Leia have a moment where she could miss Han and recollect her time with him while she was in the Millennium Falcon. But I thought it was a weird choice to just introduce this like necklace thing that, like, I don't know, did we like briefly see it in the original trilogy? I couldn't even remember.
It was literally like fucking greebling. It was just like set dressing where it was, yes, they were in the Falcon cockpit. Like, it's just a thing that was there. So then because with Solo, it's like, oh, we have to explain everything because it's a fucking prequel, which is my beef that I hate with prequels, where it's like, oh, we not only have to explain why his name is Han Solo, yuck, yuck, yuck. I fucking hate that joke so bad. But we're going to explain, what the Kessel Run is. We're going to explain what the importance of the dice are. We're going to, like, no, just give me a fucking story. It's like I bitch about on Boogeyman's Closet all the time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. Instead of explaining, like, how this family got together and why they became this crazy group of cannibals, no. We're going to explain how Sheriff Hoyt lost his teeth. We're going to explain how old Monty lost his legs. I don't care about those things. How the fuck did the cannibals become cannibals?
Yeah, we could talk about Solo another time because I have a lot of problems with that movie. Like, it's a movie that, like, I want to like it, and there's things in it that I like, but God, it's just such a fucking mess. And
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, the entirety of Solo to me is like just an extended version of the flashback sequence that opens The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, right? Where you get this flashback to Indiana Jones when he's a kid, played by River Phoenix, and in this brief sequence, you get the origin story of how he got the scar on his chin, his whip, his hat, why he likes leather jackets, the gun that he uses. It's like his entire personality is created in this one day, and then Solo is just like repeating that, but it's 2 hours long. And it's like, we don't need to know the fucking origin of every pair of jeans that the dude has. Like, God, it's ridiculous.
I'm not a prequel fan. That's actually that there is a rant that we should do one of these days. Is just a prequel rant because I am not a fan of prequels in general. But so one of the things like we mentioned the powers thing, like and the fact that they're introducing new aspects in this movie over and over again. Let's get back to the Holdo maneuver for a second. So here is my problem with that whole sequence. Does it look cool? Fuck yes. It is awesome looking. It was a badass moment on screen. I remember it in the theater. The whole room goes quiet. It cinematically is fucking awesome. I will not argue against that. Here is my problem with it. They have talked about the fuel over and over and over. They specifically mention we only have enough fuel for one more jump to light speed. So we have to, get close to this planet. And then they make it a point. They make it a point to not only show you that Holdo is siphoning the fucking fuel from the main ship to the transports. But then in case you missed it, in case you misunderstood what you were seeing on the monitors, where the levels of fuel were dropping in the main ship and rising in the fucking jump ships or the escape pods, Poe says it. He says you're taking the fuel, you're fueling up the escape pods. He's like, you're going to abandon it. Like he's basically saying out loud, hey, we're going to be dead in the water out here. So if that was the case, if you used your fuel to fuel up the escape pods so the rebels could escape, how did you have enough fuel for another jump to light speed? You specifically pointed this out to us as the audience. If you didn't, I would have no problem with this maneuver whatsoever, other than the fact that, again, why haven't we seen it sooner? Like, clearly there would have been kamikazes on the Imperial side. Like, yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
Why have we never seen this before? But I can actually look beyond that if there wasn't this whole thing with the fuel. But you put it in the movie, so it's that whole thing I've said before. I can suspend my disbelief to ridiculous breaking levels, but follow the rules you tell me that you're following. If you stop following your own rules, I can't suspend my disbelief anymore. And that's where I have a problem with the Holdo maneuver. It's like, I like it. It's cool. Cinematically, it's gorgeous. But you took the time to tell me, hey, we're doing this thing because we're not going to have enough fuel. But then you have enough fuel to do it anyway. I hate that.
Yeah, I can't argue with that either. And again, it's an easy fix. Like if they could have had the same sequence with Poe, but it should have been, instead of like you're fueling up the transports, it should have been like you're outfitting the transports, like you're whatever what's the word, you're equipping them, there's food and supplies, and the vocabulary word I'm trying to think of is escaping me at the moment, but it's like they're getting them ready to launch. Because another argument to make here, and this is one that I noticed immediately when I saw the movie the first time, is why do the transports need to be fueled up? Why are you flying around in a giant spaceship when all of your lifeboats are incapacitated? Right? Yes. That doesn't make any sense. They should be fueled up from the beginning. They should always be fueled up. Just like when you're on a ship, like on the ocean, your lifeboats need to be able to be deployed at a moment's notice in an emergency. If your transport ships are double as escape pods in an emergency situation, you can't stop and pump the gas. Like you need to just go. So yeah, it should have just been like, hey, you're loading them up with like food and whatever supplies, and then Poe would have been like, well, what the hell, like you're escaping. It's the exact same plot line, and you would have saved that tank of gas for the Holdo maneuver.
And that's the thing. Like, I wish they didn't. I wish that part wasn't in the movie, because then I would be like, yeah, that whole, it's like the Clerks cartoon joke where it's like, where they're bitching about the Phantom Menace, and then the one guy is like, but the pod race scene was pretty cool. Like it would be that would be me with this. Like I'm bitching about it, and I would be like, but that Holdo maneuver was fucking badass, because it was very cinematically cool.
Yes.
But because you took the time to tell me that moment, I'm mad about it.
Yeah. So I'll give you one, and it might be on your list, but I'll give you one because Griffin, my 12-year-old son, pointed this out, and I knew it before, but I'm like, see, that's cool that he wasn't even watching the movie with me. I had The Last Jedi on, and I wasn't even really watching it myself because I've seen it so many times, but it was just on while I was doing the dishes and I was trying to repair my refrigerator, and so I was watching it more than I was listening to it. And Griffin comes home from the store with Christina, and he just walks through the living room, glances at the screen to see like what's happening, and it's the end of the big throne room fight, where you get Kylo Ren and Rey against all of those like Imperial guards, and Griffin says, "Is the armor supposed to be lightsaber proof?" And I went, yeah, we saw that it was because they grabbed lightsabers or defended them with their wrists, and he's like, huh, and then he just walked out of the room because all the fucking guards were dead, and I'm like, see, that's exactly right. They have lightsaber proof armor that is somehow pierced by lightsabers.
I actually do have that in my list of unnecessary moments, where the fact that they are using energy weapons that don't harm them. Like they're literally wrapping the fucking laser whip around their arm that would like burn through anybody, but somehow it's not affecting their armor, and yet they still get stabbed with lightsabers. That shit doesn't make sense. But actually, that whole and I know you said you like it. This is why I didn't shit on it. But now that we're here, I gotta jump back to it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna shit on it.
Hey, that's what we're here for.
Watch the actual fight. Like don't focus on where they want you to focus. Don't focus on Kylo and Rey. Focus on what the other guys are doing during that fight. There are several scenes where dudes come spinning in, swinging their blades at nobody. Like there's nobody there. They're not. It's literally they're just dancing with energy weapons. It's filler background. It's supposed to be like it's kind of like when you're watching a cartoon, and if you watch the background characters, like sometimes no one moves except for the occasional blink. Like that's what it felt like. It's like, why is that guy just dancing in the foreground with his little spinny axe thing? Did he just hit his buddy? It looked like he hit his buddy. It reminded me of the stormtrooper bonking his head in A New Hope. It just felt like they just didn't do another take. They left that in. But that's why I didn't shit on it, because I was like, you know what? Yeah, it was probably an accident, but still.
Well, and see, I did notice that. I do see those things. But to me, it's like every fight scene in every movie where you have like one main character who's like taking on a gang of bad guys, and they fucking attack them one at a time while the other guys are standing around like they're pulling on their chains, or they're like hefting their crowbars and slapping them on their palms, like they just wait. Oh, I'm getting ready for my turn, and it's like, why are you waiting there like looking menacing? Like just jump in and fight the guy. But it's like it's movie combat, and I think after so many decades of watching movies, you kind of go along with it in the same way that you go along with characters who explain things out loud way more than they would normally in like casual dialogue, because you have to tell the audience what the hell is going on and what everybody's names are, Which I'll add an argument to why AVP Requiem is not a good movie, which is that the movie's like 10 minutes from being over, and Tegan was like, Kelly, who's Kelly? Because one of the characters mentions like, Kelly's the most important one. We got to keep Kelly alive because she can fly the chopper. And it was like, yeah, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, they've only actually named about 4 people in this whole movie, but there's like 20 main characters. Like it has a huge cast. It's a whole town of people, and they don't even mention the names of most of them out loud in dialogue. So you have no idea who they are. And when they do say their names, it's literally like, who are you talking about?
Exactly.
Anyway.
Let's we've gone through a bunch of the story moments. I have a whole lot of like other things like Deus Ex Machina, wasted potential, etc. So let's get into some of the Deus Ex Machina. So the Holdo maneuver. She breaks through the fleet. Like, not only does she destroy, like, she cuts Snoke's ship in half, but she destroys a shitload of ships in that fleet. And it's awesome. However, first of all, your allies are on that ship. So there's that. But even if you're willing to sacrifice a few to save many, I get it. It's a war. But somehow, no one that is important gets hit when that ship happens. So Finn, Rose, BB-8, Captain Phasma, Hux, fucking, Benicio del Toro as Space Porky Pig, none of them get hit with the Holdo maneuver. Somehow all of them make it out of there. Also, we'll get to Captain Phasma in a minute because that's some wasted fucking potential right there. The bomber sequence in the opening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to go into because I know there's so many Star Wars fanboy theories about why dropping bombs in space works. Like, I get it. Oh, there's a gravitational field on the ships. There's all these different, things where it's like, sure, they're magnetic. They pull down. Okay, cool. So we'll ignore the illogicalness of space bombers.
Mm-hmm.
However, you're blowing up all of the space bombers. All the space bombers get blown up except for this one that is just slowly reaching its target. And they're not shooting it down, just slowly reaching its target. Oh no, the person up top is dead. I need to get the little controller. So I get the controller. Oh, we got shot, but not enough to blow up like the other ones that get one shot and they fucking blow up. I'm gonna fall. Oh no, the remote is up at the top. I'm just going to hold on to my necklace and kick the ladder several times while everything around me is blowing up until the remote falls. And it falls past me. Oh no, I missed it. But don't worry. It's moving in slow motion and I'm not. So I'll reach into space and grab it and then deploy my payload right before I explode. So the bombs escape the explosion. And then, like, that type of Deus Ex Machina is a little too much for me. It's just too much.
Yeah, and see, I didn't have a problem with it because to me it follows the same logic as all of, or I shouldn't say all of, a lot of the other like space battles and stuff throughout the whole saga. Like nothing blows up that way in space. Like first of all, like it's a vacuum. Like fire doesn't work. Like there's a lot of like scientifically illogical things that just physically would be impossible. So again, it's the suspension of disbelief. Like, okay, fine, it's a sci-fi movie with, lasers and spaceships and like you want to see shit blow up. And they've done dumb stuff like that in the past. And I could probably just say like the prequels in terms of like that's the level of like dumb stuff that is in Star Wars. So like to me, the bar that is set for what I will just accept is pretty low just because of the history of the saga. Had we come straight out of the original trilogy and not had the prequels, I would probably argue differently, but I don't have a problem with the prequels in general. I like them, but God, they're full of just dumb stuff that doesn't make any sense. So to me, they set the bar at a different level.
Like I said, the bomber thing, I don't like it, but I can get past it. What I don't like is the whole the nick of time, slow speed, falling remote, grab it because I'm moving at full speed and it's falling in slow-mo. That part bothers me. But here's how you fix that. Here's an easy fix where I would have went, oh, that's cool. We already show throwaway casual force powers with the little, ragamuffin at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. We hint in Force Awakens, that maybe there's more to Finn than we know. Granted, it's wasted potential. I will argue that Finn is one of the most wasted characters in the entire fucking franchise.
I will 100% agree with you on that.
Because he has such a cool origin, and it's like there's so much there, and then they just whatever. Finn is Finn. They reduce him to comic relief in this movie, which pissed me off. But
hang on, let me pause you right there. I would argue that Finn is the main character of The Force Awakens, not Rey. Finn is the protagonist, or at least the audience like POV stand-in character for The Force Awakens, and that's what annoys the shit out of me. That's why I said before he has to have a side quest because he needs something to fucking do in The Last Jedi. And while I don't like Canto Blight, I'm glad they at least did something with him. Like he was a character who played an active role, and I know we'll get to it because I have problems with Phasma too. But like, man, when he says "rebel scum" at the end to Phasma, oh god, it's so cool. And to me, okay, that's what we wanted. But then and he comes back in Rise of Skywalker and he just like farts his way through the movie like doing a bunch of dumb shit because they put I think Poe is probably the main character of that movie. Again, I haven't seen it in a while because I don't want to watch that piece of crap anymore. But yeah, I remember watching it thinking like, what the fuck? Like, where is Finn? Like, he's not doing anything. And yeah, there's lots of wasted potential, lots of promises, and lots of things that the fans wanted to see. The fan service that we successfully got with The Force Awakens, they just ignored it completely for the second and third movie in the trilogy and didn't give the fans anything that they wanted to see with Finn. So yeah, he's just kind of wasted.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, maybe you don't remember either, because I really don't remember a lot of Rise of Skywalker, because like I think I've pushed most of that out of my mind. But didn't they introduce like a new love interest for him in Rise of Skywalker? Wasn't there some other chick like that he was like riding horseback on top of a Star Destroyer with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To your point, I don't recall exactly the romantic undertone there, but yes, I do remember that. And oh god, I don't want to keep talking about Rise of Skywalker, but it does so many things wrong. And yeah, it does. To your point earlier about this movie, it doesn't answer any of the questions. It doesn't fulfill any of the promises. It just, from a storytelling perspective, it is the worst screenplay probably in the 21st century so far. Like, it is so badly written. And the thing that I don't like,
garbage.
It's terrible. But the thing I like about it the least is the fact that it's the end of a trilogy that acts like it's just another installment in a long series, because it introduces a whole new cast, a whole new plot, all these new elements, and it spends so much time with these new characters we've never seen or cared about before, instead of focusing on the characters we want to see. So Rey and Chewbacca and a lot of other characters, they get short shrift, and the ending is just rushed because you waste all this time on these new characters. And like Poe's ex-girlfriend, who fucking cares? Like, exactly. Why do they do that? Like, and side note, I am convinced, absolutely convinced, that J.J. Abrams, or at least the crew that he was working with to make Force Awakens, intended for Finn and Poe to get together as a couple at some point in the trilogy, and that's the reason why Rose suddenly has a crush on Finn. That's why he gets a new love interest in the third movie. That's why Poe suddenly has an ex-girlfriend out of fucking nowhere. It was because somebody up at Disney decided that they didn't want those characters to be in a male homosexual relationship, so they all have to have girlfriends now.
I like your theory.
Anyway.
For a moment there, I was like, wait, did he mean Finn and Rey? But then I was like, oh no, he means Poe. Okay, gotcha.
Absolutely. Go if you haven't seen the subtext, go back and watch The Force Awakens again, and just in your mind think that Finn has a crush on Poe, and watch it again, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Now, thinking back, I can actually, like, now that you've planted that seed, I'm thinking of it, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can see it. I can see where you're coming from on that.
And when I saw The Last Jedi that very first time, and they introduced Rose, and the whole time I'm just thinking like, oh girl, you're barking up the wrong tree. Mm-hmm.
That would have been fucking ballsy. But of course, there are the toxic fanboys, and we talked about that in another episode, which is why I haven't really brought it up here that much. But there are those toxic fanboys that would have fucking lost their mind over that, and that's just sad. But one thing I want to say, going back to the whole bomber scene. Here's how you fix that sequence where I wouldn't hate it. Here's how I would have went, oh, that's cool. If the girl who was Rose's sister, she's laying there, she's injured, she's laying on her back, she knows she's going to die. If she was like reaching up at the remote and it fucking flew to her hand. And then she hit the button, because the Force Awakens implied that it's awakening again. More people are becoming in tune with the Force. We see that Rey, this this common junker girl on Jakku instead of Tatooine, she's able to do all these things that she didn't know she could do because she's tapped into the Force. Finn is able to wield a lightsaber. Why? Maybe because he's tapped into the Force. We see little like street urchin boy casually fucking use the Force to sweep. Like, it would have been cool, and it would have kept with the theme. Like, that little kid is a throwaway thing, like, oh yeah, the Force is alive in the children. Like, they could have shown that, and then have her blow up and show like it's not enough just to be tapped into the Force. Like, you're not all powerful because you're tapped into the Force. That would have been fucking cool. So again, that's a moment that I feel like
Agreed.
it could have been fixed.
Agreed.
Another bit of Deus Ex Machina that drives me crazy, the fucking battering ram laser. Okay, so you got this giant, it's miniaturized Death Star tech. It's a battering ram laser. It's the only thing that's going to break through those giant fucking doors on the Salt Planet. Okay, cool. Why does the beam stop as soon as it gets through the last bit of steel? Like, is it like a lightsaber? It only goes so far? There's only so much distance that the laser fires? Because a bunch of rebels were just hiding behind boxes behind that door. They were just like, oh shit, the laser blast. It burns a hole through the door and all of them are fine. Why didn't it just like fucking wipe out a whole fucking cadre of rebels?
Here's another one. Why didn't they just fire it at the rock next to the door? Right. It would have, I guarantee you, it would have blasted through that salty crystalline rock, which is, I guarantee you, is way more fragile than a door that is so reinforced, like steel that is tempered so strong that it can stand up to a laser blast. That fucking crystalline rock right next to it is not going to be that strong. They could have just slid that thing over 10 feet and blasted through the rock wall and collapsed the whole cave on all the rebels, and done. Easy.
Exactly. And I know you don't play this video game, but this is a little side note. That's what I do in 7 Days to Die, the video game that I play all the time. There'll be like these big bunkers where it's like the door to break into the bunker, it's like got 10,000, health. So it's like you got a lot of block damage to get. But the brick wall right next to it has just got 1,000. So instead of sitting here trying to break through the door, I just pickaxe my way through the wall next to it and walk right in.
Yeah, exactly. Easy. It's like wall clipping in like a video game glitch.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Oh my god! But another 2 bits of the Deus Ex Machina here is Rose's medallion just happens to be the right type of metal that Porky Pig needs to break into the beacon tracking, or like the tracker beacon room. Like, it just happens to be the right thing. It wasn't. It couldn't have been something like, he gave it back to her, after it was like, all right, you know what, we're cool. One of those types of things. No. I need this very specific, very rare type of metal to be able to do this. But I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to take your necklace. Then I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to hand it back to you. Like, it just seemed a little like, all right, why did it have to be that? What? Why did you have to point out that it had to be that?
Yeah. As much someone who spent all this time talking about how much I like this movie, and I do. I think this is great. I fucking hate this character. I hate this Codebreaker character. And again, there's the whole Canto Bite, side quest thing I think is stupid, but I hate this character. And I like Benicio del Toro, but one thing I don't like that he does is he has this really annoying habit of every time he plays a role, he always tries to come up with some kind of a weird speech impediment or a facial tic. You see it in The Usual Suspects, you see it in Snatch. Those are just the 2 that come to mind. It's like Brad Pitt is always eating in all of his movies, and it's like these guys, they have these like tics that they like to do. And I hate the fact that Benicio del Toro is just insisting on making all of his characters speak weird because they come across as cartoon characters. I don't believe that they're like real people.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, and that's why I kept referring to him as Space Porky Pig. I know,
exactly.
Hibbard coined that years ago, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. And I'm like, that is exactly what he is, a Space Porky Pig.
Yeah, I mean, I caught on immediately. I was like, exactly. But yeah, I hate this character. I really do. And if I could change one thing about The Last Jedi, it would be to get rid of Canto Bite entirely. But if I needed to pick a smaller thing, I would get rid of this character. This is the thing that I would change.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. One of the last things I want to complain about with just like, we're doing this for the plot only, like it doesn't make sense, but we're doing it for the plot, is the fact that there are only 2 speeds in space. There's cruising speed and there's light speed. And the reason I bring that up is because when the First Order jumps light speed to catch up to the rebels, they're far enough away, and they make the point to say, we're far enough away where our lasers can't break through their shields. And he's like, keep up the firing, let them know we're here. So it's like one of those like, okay, you can't step on the gas and get a little bit closer. Like you're not capable. That's not possible in space. You can't just be like, you know what? Give it a little thrust. Get closer so we can break through their shields and blow them up.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
We're just gonna cruise back here.
cruise. And see, and my argument to that would be they have a giant fleet. And this is like before we see the dumbass, ridiculously large fleet of Star Destroyers that show up in Rise of Skywalker. Another fucking reason I hate that goddamn movie. But they have a whole fleet of like Star Destroyers and the Dreadnought and all these other types of like smaller ships, and they can move at light speed, right? And when they go to light speed, they don't just like pump the gas and then back off and like they end up where they end up. They jump to specific coordinates, right? I would guess, right? We never hear them talk about it, but I would guess when they jump to light speed, they're going somewhere, right? So that would, you could follow the logic that if they have hundreds, perhaps thousands of spaceships in the First Order fleet, why don't they just take some of them, or maybe even from a different fleet, and jump them into light speed on the other side of the Resistance ship to like hem them in from the front and the back? Why can't they get in front of them? It's light speed. It's the speed of light. You can move quickly to get in front of somebody.
No, 100% agree, man. That shit irritates the hell out of me.
Yeah, I see. That's why, like, you know, the first thing I agreed with you is this car chase thing. It bugs me because, fine, if you want to do a car chase movie, do a car chase movie. That's fine, but you got to have some logic behind like what you're trying to do, because anybody can look at this immediately and be like, are you serious? Like the entire First Order fleet can't catch up to that one ship? Really?
Yeah, that whole, just the whole basis there annoys me. That's why I said, like, if you had something interesting, like there's a traitor amongst you, there's a traitor in your midst, and it's like we got to figure out who it is. Like nobody knows. The secrecy now makes sense. There's you're sowing seeds of doubt within the alliance. Like there's so much possibility with the idea of a traitor. And the funny thing is, they still made a traitor. Benicio del Toro's whole character is to be a fucking traitor. The moment they get caught, it doesn't matter that they were able to do the code breaking, because it's completely inconsequential. They catch him. And look, he turncoats on him. He's like, hey, sorry, I sold your information out. So now they know where the fucking or the little salt mine planet is anyway. They're fucked. Like, so why not just completely scrap all of that and have a traitor amongst the alliance?
Yeah, and it even fits thematically with the whole fact that these movies are a battle between, you know, light and dark and good and evil, and it's like you have this struggle between the dark side and the light side. They call it the light side. I don't know. Anyway, so it would make sense if they were to seduce somebody. You know, Snoke is so powerful and Kylo Ren is so powerful. Like, it would make sense that they could seduce somebody, especially somebody that wasn't like a Jedi, like just a random person. Like, I can't remember the character's name, but isn't Carrie Fisher's daughter, right? She plays one of the main characters that's on the ship with Poe. She's like the pilot or the technician or whatever. Like, she would have been perfect because she's a cool character that people remembered. And it would have been like this gut punch if you found out that, like, you know, Poe's, you know, right-hand lady, oh shit, like she's been feeding intelligence back to the First Order this whole time. That would have been great drama.
It would have been like fucking Joey Pants in The Matrix. Joey Pantoliano.
Yeah. Oh man.
So a couple quick things, just wasted potential characters. Phasma, completely wasted. Finn was dropped to a side character in comic relief. I find that unacceptable. R2 and Chewie barely even get a fucking scene with Luke. Like, you want to see Luke with his old pals, and we get like a little quick back and forth with R2, and that's the only moment we get with him. We don't get more R2 until the third movie, and it's like, but R2 and Luke, it's peanut butter and jelly. Like, they go together. What the fuck? Like, they're buddies. You know, so that really bothered me. And then again, Snoke. I feel it was wasted potential. All this buildup for just like, hey, we're going to kill him anyway, rather than have him being like I would have loved it if like Kylo cut him in half or whatever, and then like he fucking reformed or some kind of crazy shit. Like, we're already throwing crazy force powers out there, and we know he's a clone in the next movie, so it's like, well, why do the rules have to apply? You know, if we're gonna throw the rules out anyway. That shit irritates me. But now I want to get to the unnecessary humor.
Hang on real quick before you do. Like, let me comment on the
wasted
potential just briefly. The Snoke thing, again, they could have solved it in Rise of Skywalker. I don't think that that's a Last Jedi problem. That's a Rise of Skywalker problem, because this is the dark installment. It's the Empire Strikes Back installment. Like, everything goes to shit. And I think it's cool that they take down the bad guy, especially a bad guy that they set up to be like so powerful, and oh fuck, then they killed him. And it makes Kylo Ren look like a badass. At least it does to me. I thought it was, and it's a really interesting storytelling choice. Just take the villain down. Like, you know, this guy who said, I cannot be betrayed, and then bam, he gets betrayed. Like, that's cool. Again, they solve it in the next movie. Don't bring fucking Palpatine back. Bring Snoke back, and then explain how he's alive, or he's a clone, or, you know, he was a force projection, or, you know, fuck, maybe he's like a hive mind, or whatever. Like, there's all kinds of things you could have done to explain and to maintain Snoke as the villain. But that's a Rise of Skywalker problem, that they fucked it up. And then Phasma, same thing. I fucking love Phasma. I love Phasma. I thought she was wasted potential in Force Awakens, because she doesn't get to do much except get thrown in a garbage pit after, you know, she's, you know, forced to betray her own people. But I love her shit in The Last Jedi, where she faces Finn. I wish she was in it more, but it's cool that she gets a good moment, right? She gets to set Finn up for that badass line when he says "rebel scum," and then she falls into the fire. Again, that's not a Last Jedi problem. That's a Rise of Skywalker problem, because she could have come back damaged, scarred, robot arm, like whatever. Like, somehow she's back, but they just were like, nah, she's dead now. And it's like, no, don't leave her dead. What are you doing? Like,
yes. And I completely agree, because I think Phasma, they were, especially in the lead up to Force Awakens, they were setting up Phasma almost as like the new Boba Fett, where it's like, oh, there's this really cool looking mysterious character. And it's like, they could have done so much with her. And again, the scenes that she was in, she was badass. So to just throw her away, it's like, it's almost like the Darth Maul problem. Yeah, but at least with Darth Maul, he got like a really cool fight sequence out of it.
Yeah, and he did eventually come back, you know, and that's fine. Like, I'm happy. I don't necessarily like the way that they chose to bring him back, but that's cool. He's back, you know, that's fine. Right. But yeah, and this is why I get so pissed off about Rise of Skywalker, and why, you know, when people like yourself make the argument that, like, oh, well, J.J. Abrams was like setting up mysteries and promises, and then the other movies, you know, fucked him up. And I'm like, yeah, but J.J. Abrams made the Rise of Skywalker, so he fucking cashed those Disney checks and did what those producer notes told him to do, and he didn't fulfill the promises that he set up. Phasma and, you know, Rey and, you know, Snoke and all these characters that could have been awesome, and he just didn't give a shit. You know, he just went and cashed his checks and put this terrible movie out and like fucked up the saga after he made The Force Awakens, which is one, maybe not my number one, but it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. Like, he fucking nailed it with that shit.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's a case of two things can be true at once, where, yes, he did set up a bunch of mystery and a bunch of things where it's like, oh, you know, let's pay attention to this. Think about this. You know, these are things you need to pay attention to. And then, to your point, when The Last Jedi kind of bombed, like, it didn't bomb, but it also kind of did bomb, because like fanfare was really split on this one. And Disney listened, and then you got all the producers' notes, and Abrams was cashing a check. So it's like, even if he did set up this great idea in the first one with The Force Awakens, he still listened to the Disney overlords who were like, you will do this. And he's like, okay, give me the money. You know, so yeah, I mean, two things are true at once. But, and I'll agree with you. Like, Rise of Skywalker definitely is the worst, hands down.
Yeah.
I just will argue that for me, this is the second worst.
Oh, okay. Ooh, okay. So since we don't have to do the whole ranking, maybe if we have time, but for me, the second worst is Attack of the Clones. That was my bottom until Rise of Skywalker came out.
That's my third worst. But real quick, I want to get to the unnecessary humor, because there's so many moments in here where I'm just like, that kind of groan. I already mentioned the Porgs and Chewie thing, where I was like, really? That just seems silly. Luke tossing the saber. I get it. It's shocking. It's subverting expectations. It just didn't work for me. It didn't land. I was just like, the fuck? That's not Luke. Like, it didn't hit me right. Luke drinking the space walrus titty milk, whatever. I mean, whatever. I don't care, but at the same time, it's just like, it just sticks out. It's one of those scenes that it doesn't feel like the blue milk in Tatooine, which is I'm sure what they were trying to reference. Like, oh, look, he drinks green milk too. Like, okay, so the blue milk is bantha milk, whatever. They're just drinking blue milk. If Luke was just like gathering up some milk and putting it in his bag, like, who would have cared? But they take time to focus on like he's squeezing that titty milk, and then he's like, and he's grunting at the screen, and then we take time for Rey to lock eyes with the space walrus and for it to like snork at her. Then we move on. Like, it's a little much. It's a little strange.
Yeah.
I've already mentioned Del Toro as Space Porky Pig. That always annoys me. But here's the one. Here is the one that this is why when I saw it in the theater, I was crossing my arms within the first 5 minutes of the movie, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. We have this very serious opening crawl talking about the plight of General Leia Organa and like the Rebel Alliance. You know, they're facing insurmountable odds, and it's like, oh shit, like this is serious. We're getting right into the battle, and then we have a your mom joke.
Yeah.
It just sticks out like a giant sore thumb to me. Like, you know, okay, if they had done like the back and forth where like there's bad communication and Hux is like, can he hear me? Like that, okay, that's funny. That's enough. You could have cut it off there and saved yourself. Yep. But then you have to do your mom joke, and I'm like, just groan.
Yeah, I'll agree with you that it is a groaner. To me, it's not even close to being a deal breaker, because again, the humor in some of the other movies is just as bad, if not worse. All of George Lucas's attempts to write jokes really fall flat, especially in The Phantom Menace. You know, with fucking Jar Jar. Like, yeah, so. It does stand out. It sticks out as something that doesn't seem to fit within the universe. Like it's a real world, like, you know, fourth wall breaking, wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the audience. And like, okay, but I'll let it go. You know, I do think it's weird that it's so close to, you know, the poignant moment when Rose's sister Paige dies. And then, you know, like just a minute or two later, you know, Poe is like cracking jokes. But, you know, at the same time, I love when they make fun of Hux.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like I was accepting of like the funny like, haha, we're fucking with him. I can actually hear him and he can't hear me, like that type of thing. Like that was funny. But then to just kind of hit it with the mom joke, it was like you dragged the joke on where it was that whole thing of like there's the three stages where it's like tell the joke once, it's funny, tell the joke again, it's kind of like, all right, now you're kind of dragging it out. Tell the joke a third time, it's the comedy rule of three. It's like, okay, now it's back to being funny again.
Yeah.
Like it hit that point of like where it was like, oh, that's funny. Okay. And then it ended, and it was like, all right, yes. So it kind of ended on a dour note for me.
Yeah, I would agree. If they had given Harrison Ford your mom joke in Force Awakens, I would have bought it 100%. I would have gone with it.
Oh, absolutely. But now, okay, so there's just a couple things. I know we got to wrap this up. There's just a couple things I want to say here. Now, I argued this a lot, and I know you heard this argument from me in the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, in the horror community, there was a giant Japanese horror boom. Like everybody, like we were remaking Japanese horror, people were importing Japanese horror, and here's the thing: there's a lot of really terrifying Japanese horror movies that they, especially with ghost movies, they have like, it's just a different flavor of ghost movie with Japanese horror, and they're good.
Oh, hell yeah.
But a lot of people, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of very fucking bizarre Japanese horror movies that there are cultural differences that we're not going to understand over here because there is such a cultural divide with some of the stuff that we're talking about in the movie. What used to drive me crazy is when people would be like, oh my God, this is such an amazing movie. It's so fucking good. And I'd be like, well, okay, what is it that you liked about it? It was different. Okay. I mean, I get that. I get something being different and being refreshing because it's like, oh, this is something I haven't seen before. But
Mhm.
that doesn't inherently make it a good story. It can
Yeah.
make it good to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is a good story. Subverting expectations can be a wonderful thing, but in the context of a story, the story still has to be good. It can't
Yep.
be a collection of gotcha moments, which is what I feel like they did here and in Rise of Skywalker, where I feel like Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy desperately wanted to do something new with Star Wars. They kept saying they wanted to do something new with Star Wars. And they were trying that, and that's fine. But you need a cohesive story to be able to do that in. You can't just go, it's different. That doesn't make it good. That just makes it different. And that's
Mhm.
where I have a problem with this in general is I feel like the whole second and third movie in the Disney trilogy to me feel like a series of gotcha moments and bet you didn't see that coming.
Mhm.
Guess what? Ray Palpatine. Like
Oh, I hate that so much.
it's just none of it clicks, you know? And again, I said at the start and I'll say it again. It is fine to like it just because you like it, but don't argue that it's good writing if it's just subverting your expectations. Because a gotcha moment can be great, but it doesn't make it good. It might make it good for an individual, but not good like writing. And
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
where I get kind of caught up on this particular movie. Now, I also have a whole bunch of shit that I've bitched about before where I really think that the way Disney as a whole handled the criticisms was really shitty because there were
Yes.
plenty of people like myself who were criticizing it on the merit of the story you told and had no criticisms with the characters. There was no, oh, it's, Ray's a Mary Sue, Rose is a terrible character, oh, you're shoehorning diversity. I was not arguing that. Many of us were not arguing that. Most of us were saying the characters are great. I like the characters, but the story was kind of disjointed and didn't make sense to what you told us before. And there's a lot of stuff that really doesn't make sense, like the whole Canto Bite scene. And then they were just like, well, if you don't like it, you're a racist, misogynist piece of shit. And it's like,
Mhm.
don't belittle people who are genuinely giving you criticism and bully them into being like, you can't have a voice because if you choose to use your voice, we're going to call you these awful names. That's shitty. And the other thing that bothers me in general when this type of stuff comes up is that 9 times out of 10, when people want to take an established franchise or an established property and do something new with it because they either A, don't like the source material, like Rian Johnson famously said he does not like Star Wars. There are people like with Freddy versus Jason. Ronnie Yu
Mhm.
was not a fan of either Freddy or Jason. Like, I get wanting to do something new with it, but when you're dealing with a franchise that has a giant fan base, you sell to your audience. You don't sell to the people that aren't your audience because they're not your audience already for a reason. They don't care. They don't want the property. So why are you trying to sell to them and say, looking at the fans that already exist and going, it's Star Wars, fuck you, you'll buy it. Like, we don't got to pander to
Mhm.
you, fuck you. Like, that irritates me because it's like, then what's the point? Just make something new. Why do you got to shit on something that somebody loves to just be like, well, we wanted new fans?
Yeah.
Then make a property for those fans. you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I I agree with all of that. To me, a lot of that is outside of the movie that I'm watching. Right? It's
Yes. Yeah.
Rian Johnson. It's Kathleen. What's her face? It's
Kennedy. Yeah.
Disney. Yeah. It's the fan base and all of that. I agree with you. It all sucks. The way that the fan base and Disney reacted to criticism, reacted to and I keep saying like the character that plays Rose, and because I know that everyone like treated her shitty, and it's like I don't even know her name, and like now I feel bad, like fuck, like what is her name? I feel like
Right.
I should at least name her. Is it Kelly Marie Tran? And I didn't like her character, but it had nothing to do with her, right? It had nothing to do with the fact that it was, a non-white, non-male,
Right.
character or actor. Nothing to do with that. I just think she was, like we said before, there's like a lot of wasted potential, and I think that she was wasted potential. If you're going to introduce a new character, then I feel like she needed to do something other than to be the sister of the other character who had a sacrificial, hero moment and someone for Finn to talk to. And that to me is all Rose was. That's what's in the movie. But outside of the movie, in the real world, you have an actress who's doing her job, who gets treated like shit. You get fucking directors who are just cashing big Disney checks, Disney who are shitting on what George Lucas had intended to do because, they feel like, the executives just feel like they know better to just go and, and do whatever. And you go from having a huge success like The Force Awakens, which is fan service in the best possible way, and a movie that in general people really, really loved. I mean, yes, it had its detractors, but in general, people liked that. And then to immediately go, we're going to do something totally different. I don't have a huge problem with that mindset. Cool. Give me something different. You gave me the fan service. Now go in a different direction. Cool. That to me is just Empire Strikes Back. It is a very, very different movie than A New Hope. And I'm fine with it. But then again, it was the way that people reacted outside of the movie. And it's the fucking mess that we got with Rise of Skywalker, which is quite honestly, it feels like if you and I did another like improv ruin episode like we did with We Have RoboCop at Home, and it was like ruin a Star Wars movie, and by putting all of the worst possible advice and producer notes and just dumb shit in a movie because it's all just written by corporate committee. And that's what we got right by Skywalker, because it feels like Disney just bailed on it, which pisses me off because in the years since this trilogy came out, you get great TV shows like The Mandalorian and Kenobi, and like you get this expanded universe. And I feel like Disney is putting their support back on Star Wars, but for some reason, after The Last Jedi, both the fan and like the corporate reaction to the movie was, I guess it's like they panicked and they pulled the plug or they pulled their support. And I don't know if I'm exactly, explaining it correctly, but it annoys me because I feel like the movie that we actually got isn't that bad. Like the prequels are pretty bad, but it wasn't like the movie studios were just like pulling out of the prequels. Oh, like fuck all that shit. No, they made the Clone Wars. They did all kinds of stuff to get behind, hey, this is the direction we went in. This is what we're going to do. Lucasfilm had a mission. Whereas you get one Star Wars movie that gets bad reviews and Disney just goes, fuck it. We'll do something else. And that's what is, to me, the thing that bothers me about The Last Jedi. It's the legacy of the movie, but the movie that I'm watching on my screen is fun.
Well, see, and that's the thing. Like, again, I wish I could join you there. I wish I could have fun with it, because I agree. I agree with everything you said about Disney pulling the plug. The thing that separates the prequels from the Disney sequels is that the prequels, you said it yourself, Lucas had a vision. They had a vision for what they were going to do, and like you could tell, like this was planned out. Like it was very distinctly planned out. You had the cartoons, you had the things that carried on, you had more of the story, so much so that there is an entire generation of Star Wars fans that grew up with the prequels and the Clone Wars cartoons, that to them that is Star Wars. That's the Star Wars universe that they love. And I love that exists. You don't really hear that with the Disney sequels. And I think it's because they didn't have it felt like they got the keys to the kingdom and freaked the fuck out. And they're like, we can do whatever we want. Like, and again, there's that, we joke about this on Count Creepyhead all the time with Hasbro, where they do the Star Wars tax. Like if you're buying a 3 3/4 inch figure and it's $12.99 for all the normal characters, and then suddenly Boba Fett is $19.99, you're paying the Star Wars tax. Or it's like, oh look, these epic heroes, they're $5.99 a piece, but Darth Maul is $13. Why? Because it's Darth Maul and he's popular, and it always has it smacks of it's Star Wars. Fuck you, you'll buy it. And that's exactly how I felt with this trilogy. Is it felt like Disney was just like, it's fucking Star Wars. You can't lose. You'll buy it. Fuck you. You're fans. Eat it up. And then we're going to tell you what a shitty fan you are for eating it up. Ha ha, fuck you, you piece of shit, buy more. Like, that's what it felt like. They are Canto Bite.
Yes, yes, and honestly, like I got burnt on this. I liked Rogue One. To me, Solo was the coffin nail, and it because I like this movie. I hated Rise of Skywalker, but I was like, you know what, like fine, whatever. But Solo was the movie where I was like, I don't know how much more of this I can do, but the double feature of Solo and Rise of Skywalker are just like, yeah, I don't want this anymore. And I never would have watched The Mandalorian if it hadn't been for the hype around like Baby Yoda and Pedro Pascal. So I gave it a chance, and thankfully it's not a really long show. The episodes are actually relatively short, and there aren't that many of them. The seasons are pretty short. But and I liked Kenobi, but I kept getting bored, and I kept getting bored with it. And like I haven't watched any of the other TV shows, and I'm sure they're good, but I had the same problem that I had with the MCU, after Endgame, where they went heavy to TV with Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier and whatever, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Like I just get burnt on it. I'm feeling like really just like the fatigue of all of this bullshit, and I just felt let down by Star Wars, like to the point where I like The Last Jedi. I will always like The Last Jedi, despite its flaws, just like I like The Phantom Menace, despite its many, many, many flaws.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I'm happy to end my Star Wars experience like with this movie. I don't give a shit about pretty much anything that comes after this, despite the fact that some of that was pretty good.
So now a couple closing remarks I want to comment on. Going back to the whole, like, the way they handled the criticisms that bothered me so much. When Force Awakens came out, you have a black male lead and a female lead. Like, those are two of your main leads. Very, 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 very few people, at least the loud people, very few people were bitching about that. Yes, a lot of people were bitching about the Mary Sue thing. Like, people are like, oh, she can, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, have you not seen a Star Wars movie? This is a common thing. People learn, they get powers out of nowhere. Like, it happens. Most fans were excited. Most fans were like you and I, where they're just like, shit, tell me more. This is cool. I like these characters. What's Finn's story? I like that guy. What's Rey gonna do? She's cool. Like, most fans had that reaction. So then when Last Jedi came out and fans like myself reacted badly, and hell, even Daisy Ridley and fucking Mark Hamill and why can't I think of his name? The guy who plays Finn.
John Boyega.
Thank you, John. I was like, I always want to say Bodega. John Boyega. All three of them had like the most polite kind of response they could have without losing their job type of thing. Like, it's very clear none of them were happy with the direction the movie went. Like, so like everybody is kind of like, guys, that's not exactly what we thought was going to happen, nor is it what the fans want. But the reaction was, you don't like it because it's got a black guy and a woman in it. And it's like, that's just, it bothers me to my core, because you're talking about two things that are really bad. Misogyny and racism are fucking awful, but you're going to cheapen them by using it as a fucking shield and a cudgel at any criticism. That is just, that's not only disingenuous to the people who actually suffer from those things, like who actually have those horrible people leveling shit at them because they're horrible people. Like, you're minimizing the pain that people go through with that, but you're also telling the average person you shouldn't have a voice, because if you do, we're going to beat you down by calling you a racist, misogynist piece of shit. That really bothers me, and it always will, and I will never have an excuse for that. It always irks me. One of the last things I want to say, because it's something I missed in my notes that I found fucking hilarious, is the way Chewie drops off Rey at Snoke's ship like a fucking mom that's late for work, kicking her kid out of the car to daycare. Like, because he just like drives by, she fucking jettisons out. He's like, all right, bitches, I'm out. And he just takes off as Rey like floats into the hangar. That every time I see it, I laugh my ass off, because I'm just like, he just like kicked her out of the car.
Yeah, basically. Oh man, it was awesome.
So
But yeah, no, this was good. And we went into this on two sides of the same coin, and I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, like I agreed with a lot of your points and arguments because yeah, I can see the flaws in it, and I don't know if I have made you think twice about some of the issues that you have on your long list of problems with the movie, but hey, maybe there's another perspective to take. But at the end of the day, we had a good time talking about it at least.
oh yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like I will repeat what I said at the start. Just because I am not a fan in no way should ever diminish the enjoyment for other people. If other people enjoy this, I am happy because that means we're going to get more Star Wars. Like there are plenty of things I don't like about some of the Star Wars that Disney has done. I haven't finished watching was it Acolyte? I started watching it. I can tell you right now I am not a fan of Acolyte. I agree with a lot of the criticisms that Acolyte received, but I'll finish watching it. I'm glad that there are fans of it. I'm glad that there are people out there that like it because I don't ever want Star Wars to go away. I want there to be more Star Wars, and I do believe that there is plenty of room in that universe for a shitload of voices. There are plenty of things that people can say within that universe. My beef specifically with the Disney trilogy is I felt like it was incohesive. Like
Yeah.
as a trilogy, it doesn't make sense. As standalone movies, cool. Hey, do what you want to do. But with the legacy characters and as a final chapter to those legacy characters, we didn't even talk about Leia using fucking space Superman powers, but that's a whole other thing. Like there are plenty of room for plenty of voices. So I'm glad when people say they can enjoy the stuff that I don't enjoy because I know that they at least, hey, they're making enough money, they're going to continue to make more of this property. I don't want it to ever go away. Same thing with the Marvel movies. There's plenty of Marvel movies and Marvel shows that I'm just like, meh, whatevs. But I'm glad they do well because I want more. I want them to get to the other stuff that I like,
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely still Marvel movies that I'd be interested in checking out. And I've tried some of the TV shows, and there always seems to be a point at which the hype kind of dies down, but they keep making stuff, and eventually the hype will build up again. Eventually they'll reach a point where people are kind of catching on again, and I think again that happened with Star Wars with the Mandalorian. I think it reinvigorated people's interest after Solo and Rise of Skywalker, and you saw that with the MCU as well. Some of the more recent, I say, announcements, maybe not necessarily the movies that have come out so far, but some of the recent announcements of like plans for upcoming phases, I feel like people are getting excited about it again. And I'm getting interested again. Like I'm getting to the point where it's like, well, shit, maybe it's been long enough and it's time for me, to catch up, because I'm definitely curious. It's hard to live with a franchise for such a long time and go on those journeys and care about those characters and, invest all of this like time and interest just to have it fizzle out. So it's okay to take a break.
absolutely. And like some people don't ever feel the need to take a break, while others absolutely do. I'm right there with you. Even things like I'm a huge diehard World of Warcraft fan. There's been plenty of expansions where like I started to play it and was like, I just don't got it in me, and then didn't really play for the entirety of the expansion, and then pick it up 2 or 3 expansions down the line and go back and play those games, be like, oh wow, these were fun. It's okay to do that. You can take a break from a franchise. You don't have to consume it. It should never feel like work. Your entertainment should never feel like work.
Yes, exactly. I run into that problem with comics sometimes where, some comic series tend to run very long. There could be, hundreds of issues or stacks and stacks of, graphic novels in a row. And me being the completionist that I am when it comes to, things like video games and whatnot, I apply that to comics as well. As I have a hard time where if I enjoy a series, I have a hard time not wanting to read everything that there is. And eventually it starts to become like a chore. It feels like work. Like, oh God, I have to read some more of these comics tonight, or I'm never going to get through this list, and today I had that experience where I actually finished a part of a list, and then walked into the library like, oh, okay, I guess I should read something. Oh, I got to get through those comics, and I'm like, you know what? No, I don't gotta get through anything. And so I just grabbed a random book off the shelf I hadn't read before, completely at random, and just sat down and read like whatever it was because I was like, I just need something else in my brain.
Oh, absolutely. So I know we got to wrap this up, unfortunately, but I will say this. I think this was the longest rental rant we've ever done. So hopefully everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the longest one. Let me look at my list. Yeah, so the previous longest non-improv episode was our AVP ABCs episode from season 2, which was Super Gushers at 2 hours and 15 minutes. But if we just look at Rental Rants, then the longest one we ever did prior to this was 1 hour and 24 minutes, which was Your Kung Fu Grip is Old and Now You Must Die. And that wasn't even really a rental rant either, because we had Michael May on talking about, what we would do with like a G.I. Joe like toy line. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
That is funny. And as far as like the AVP, one, that we were talking about a fucking entire franchise.
Yeah, not just one movie. Yeah.
So,
ironically, our toxic fandomology and fandom toxicology, the two rental rants we did about, toxic fandom, they both ran exactly 1 hour and 16 minutes, which was the longest actual rants that weren't some other topic. So yeah, this episode is like almost twice that length.
I mean, and to be fair, we talked about this in the last episode, and we'll mention it again here. This season, we're fucking going all out. We've gone back to the well, and we're going to deliver on a bunch of promises that we've been talking about. So we've been hinting at this debate, this conversation for like a couple seasons now. So yeah, it does make sense that it ran long. I hope everyone, enjoyed it. And hopefully if you guys take away anything, just take away, enjoy what you enjoy. Don't let my opinions or Josh's opinions, sour you on a film. Just if you enjoy it, please, by all means, enjoy it. I wish I could, man. I wish I could join you guys. I really do.
Yes, absolutely. But, of course you're going to enjoy it because I'm right. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I was drinking coffee when you said that.
But yeah, thanks for sticking around. Another reason we put it off for so long is because we knew it was going to run long. We knew we were going to have a lot to say. So yep. Yes, we have a lot of stuff coming up this season. We've already done 2 episodes so far where we have tried to fulfill promises that we set up, at least to ourselves. And we have multiple episodes coming up. We're going to be doing some sequels. We're going to be doing some follow-ups. We're going to go back to some other series and concepts we touched on and touch on them again. So I feel like season 4 is going to be a lot of continuing things that we have already set up. And yeah, we plan on going really all in this season. So we're still pretty early in the year, but I'm hoping we can stick to that mission. So anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in to the Razor Rentals program. Once again, if you like this, find us online, razorrentals.com. Go check out radpantheon.com and Rad Pantheon on the socials. Our super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, all sorts of creative people supporting each other to help spread the word about rad stuff. If you like this show, definitely go check those out. You'll find some other cool shows to listen to and some cool artists to check out. What about you, Mike? You got anything going on?
The Boogeyman's Closet is kind of following a similar trajectory as Raised by Rentals, where this season we're focusing primarily on films that we have been trying to get on the show for a long time. So we're not doing as many of the, voting like we used to. We're also not really sticking to a 4 episode a month format. We're kind of all over the place, but we got couple of bangers coming up. I don't know exactly when this episode's going to come out, but I think it'll be before we get to the February movie, which the only one I know for sure is going to be the 2001 awful slasher movie Valentine with David Boreanaz. I've been threatening to get that on the show for about 3 years. We're finally going to fucking do it. And then, of course, Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where 3 grown man children talk about pop culture and Muppets.
You don't even mention toys anymore.
I know, not at all. It's just a blanket of pop culture. Exactly. But Muppets are always a part of it because Kermit is a regular character.
Nice. So once again, thanks for tuning in. If you had fun with us, visit us on the socials, drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a rating. Let us know what we should bitch about next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we have to return some videotapes.
My childhood became alive the day that Luke Skywalker died from being tired. How the fuck did Jedi die from being tired? My childhood became alive the day that Han Solo just died and I didn't cry. I should have cried. I should have cried. I should have cried when I died.
Laser sword at dawn.